Start recording. All right. So, is it possible the powers that be are conspiring against us from having an awesome conversation? Like, I don't know what's happening. I've never had this much trouble trying to have a conversation with somebody, but I am bound and determined now. So, the conversation will be had, and we will get into the specifics of every single detail.
It's so scary.
With no restrictions now, because it's
Yeah,
not
it's so
live.
scary, man. Because we were fine. There was no problem whatsoever before we hit live.
Yeah, it's truly fascinating, and I hate to even consider that kind of stuff, but it's like, what is even happening with the amount of things that have happened tonight? It's just it's
Bizarre. Bizarre, man.
it's bizarre. But we're gonna go ahead and continue. So to give a
Yes.
recap on everything, what we were talking about before was the power nexuses of control and the mechanisms that they use to farm us, and one of those things being mind control, really. And I can't remember the specifics, but there was something, they all America and Russia went hard in like the 1920s 1930s, experimenting with like psychological conditions or pre-programming people and that kind of stuff. And I'm sure you've heard of MK Ultra and whatnot. Like all of these things are like built upon stuff that they figured out in like the early 1900s. And so basically, what they did is everyone's looked up at the sky forever, and gone, hey, what's going on up there? And then you realize, oh, it's a clock, and it tells you where you're at in the year. It even tells you where you're at on the plane, all that kind of stuff. So when you start realizing that there's like a cyclical nature to it and all that kind of stuff, men tell stories about it, and they start making predictions about it, and they're like, oh, look, I figured out that this is going in a cycle, and I predicted this or that phenomenon in the sky. And it's really they've just found a way to describe the heavens and what's going on in there, and just like they've kind of co-opted it, right? They've made everything materialistic up there, and they've attributed physical properties to it, and weights, and how its weight is affecting a background fabric of nothing, that's responsible for everything for everything that goes on up there. And it's real, and to get people to like submit to that and give their ability of like discernment, to get them to submit to those people and capitulate to the things that they say about what's going on in the sky. They started with programming, and they got us early with things like you were saying, all the child programming stuff, like all the children's movies and action figures and all that stuff. It's all related to dinosaurs, space stuff, superheroes that are that got incredible powers from space. I think most of the superheroes, not most of them, but like there's like a good chunk of story arcs where like an astronaut went into space, and then like some cosmic ray or whatever, now they're a mutant superhero. Like there's all these fantastical stories about this magical land that we only see through the television screen, and actors.
It's almost like the default setting for cartoon heroes is outer space and being like intergalactic, and the way they set it up is we're always on a linear progressive direction, more technologically advanced, more better space vehicles who are going to achieve speed of light and all. You know what I'm trying to say. Like they always try to make it look like we're on a trajectory of progress. Like
like we're always getting one step closer,
step by step, but always progressing.
Yeah, they and it's illusionary progress too. It's not even like a lot of the stuff that they show us. Wow, it's lagging again, man. What a shame.
It's happening again just now. You were fine until I started talking.
So crazy.
You were fine. I started talking, and then it got choppy. I'm the bad luck.
I don't know what's going on,
sorry.
man.
I don't know what's going on.
Yeah, I'm just watching my Discord latency thing just shit the bed.
I'm looking at your video. Oh yeah, okay. Your video is now for the first time also getting choppy on
Really?
Discord.
Really?
It was never
okay.
choppy.
All right, I'm just gonna turn off the fucking camera. I don't know what's going on, bro. All right. Hopefully that helps. I guess I can't handle uploading anything tonight. So,
Yeah, big L from YouTube.
dude,
We're only as good as the platform we're using, guys.
yeah, for real, man. So I'm sorry. So yeah, so continue on, please. I kind of got a little sidetracked on the lag.
um, yeah. So what was I saying? They really peg a lot of their investment on kids, and because we're malleable as children, and then they want you as a child to believe in the things they heavily push, and they do really push a few tropes to children. We talked about space and the solar system. They also push a lot of dinosaur lore. When I was growing up, I'm a few years older than you. Jurassic Park was a
Yeah, huge, bro.
franchise that they used that a
Yeah,
lot in shaping. Because I remember there was a lot of Jurassic Park themed accessories, and schools started talking more about dinosaurs in sync with uh, the movie release and all that. It's so weird. It's almost like sometimes even like school curriculums are manipulated by popular culture. Like it makes no sense, but I do remember like we had dinosaur week in our elementary school, and like I'm not saying it was insidious or anything like that. You know, they're just naive teachers taking
yeah.
advantage of a
Oh, dude,
viral thing,
bro,
right?
check this out. So one of my buddies, run Boston Bear JT. Uh,
Hmm.
his kids go to a they go to a private school, you know, and like they're Christians and stuff. So anyway, at this Christian private school, I'm sorry, I think it might be anyway, I'm pretty sure it's Christian Catholic school or Christian school. Anyway, uh,
Hmm.
they for when it's the classmates when it's one of the kids' birthdays, they do a ritual where they um what is it? They all make little globes and shit, and they like chant around in a circle, and like they chant it each time for like however old you are. They do like a rotation as if it's like, you know, you're going around the sun marking a year kind of thing. Like they like like, why in the hell would you do that, man? It's so crazy that they do that. But yeah, it's this whole ritual where like um though they literally walk in a circle around, you know, someone that's representing the sun, and they, you know, they do it as many times as they are old. So it's mind blowing. And when you've done that so many times, I mean, how are you gonna have the mental fortitude to be like, you know, to come out of that, to like, to not be like, oh wait, we're not moving, you know? Because here's the thing,
Yeah.
but they did experiments to test the motion of the Earth, to test their hypothesis of how they were explaining everything about the motion of
Hmm.
the Earth, and they measured not what not they didn't get the measurement that would give an agreement with how fast they would have to be moving for the Earth to
Hmm.
be moving in the way that they say they do. So they literally have to, like, you know, get children to believe in non-existent motion by doing these rituals, you know.
Yeah, they really heavily bank on our trust. Like when you're a child, you trust any adult. Like just default, you see an adult, like you're just going to trust what they have to say, and they bank on that Achilles heel to get a hold of, you know, our our sentiments and opinions and shape our worldview. Like if if they, I don't know. Mm, Sometimes I wonder if when you hear about all those missing kids, or you know, children, you know, or those I don't want to get too dark, but you know, those mission schools back in the 19th century, you hear about graveyards of missing kids behind the schools. You just wonder, are those the kids that asked too many questions. The skeptical,
Yeah.
the skeptical kids, got disappeared. Like they do that with people in the adult world. Do they start off early, and we just have no clue? Like, who knows?
That's hilarious.
I would not be surprised if that's the all the missing children in the world were the ones who were like, are they really dinosaurs? I don't know. I just maybe I'm being a little too dark there.
Yeah, man. No, that's hilarious, dude. Because yeah, I could just see that happening. They're like teaching, heliocentrism or some bullshit, and one of the kids is like, so where's the evidence for that? And they're just like, they just hit like a little button, and like a security team guy just comes in. And he's like, Timmy, the principal needs to see you in his office, and like, they just never hear from that kid again. And they're like, what
The
happened to Timmy?
real
And they're like,
white van.
he transferred to another school.
Timmy transferred.
Yeah, man, he got
Yeah.
transferred out of here to another plane of existence, man.
Yeah, that's how cynical I am now. I think uh, the, the education system and basically having early on access to children is one of the biggest arsenal in the tool of the power nexus.
Yeah, man. Think about this, bro. They make it illegal for you to not put your kid in public school. Like, they need immediate access as soon as your kid can like go to the bathroom by himself, by like age 5. Like, once they're competently doing that, they're like, yeah, let me get that kid off your hands for 8 hours a day, my dude. You know what I'm saying? It's actually fucking
Absolutely.
nuts. It's so crazy.
And
people
I don't
do
want to
it,
get
bro.
too
They give their kid up for 8 hours a day.
and Alan, I don't want to get too esoteric, but the whole school system, kindergarten is a German word, if you've noticed, right? Kindergarten. It's Kinder is child in German, right? The whole school system that we have, K to 12, and then you progress to a next grade, and then you progress to a next grade, and so on. It started in Prussia, 19th century Prussia. Prussia was one of the precursors, one of the states that will be incorporated into modern day Germany. You do know how we were talking about earlier before the internet crapped out, von Braun, right? And
Yeah.
the whole rocket industry being a German thing, a Nazi thing. Not only were the rockets and the spaceships a Nazi concept, schools and school system and a blackboard in the front of the class and itty bitty tables, neatly set up in front of the teacher and the classroom. All of that was originated in Germany, Prussia, Germany, 19th century.
Wow.
And you can look it up. The school system. Yeah.
I had heard some of that, but not in the detail that you went into. But yeah, I've heard that it was modeled after that. But yeah, that's fascinating. Yeah.
Before the the Prussians perfected modern schooling and modern education, we were all just going to either a Catholic funded school, Christian schools, Jewish halakas, madrasas. It was always the churches or the temples, the religious institutions were responsible for teaching kids, right? And they religions have their psyops, whatever, but ever since the French Revolution and the Bavarian stuff, the guys from Bavaria, Weishaupt, and all that got a hold of a power nexus and waged the whole war on the churches, and did the whole divorce of the church and state. They took over from the churches in instructing kids and having access to kids, right? They are the ones who planted the trope that priests and Catholic priests are all diddlers and pedos and all that. That's an Illuminati trope, right? They're all pedos. The priests, the Illuminati, they all are.
Yeah.
But
dude.
just because they defeat the church back in the 18th, 19th century, you know,
They
the
make
slander of the churches
yeah.
when it comes to their relationship with children, it went off the deep end. But they all do it. They all.
Yeah, I've noticed that it seems like the infrastructures that these people control always seem to lead back to
Mhm.
circumstances that facilitate, you know, those activities, and that's really that's they do all do it. That's funny that they make them like the public, you know, the punching bag, you know, so that nobody's so that they can maintain this illusory coolness of the Illuminati. So have you noticed like in the latest, I forget what it is, in the latest superhero movie, they do this thing where they bring in the public awareness to the Illuminati. I guess like one of the guys is, you know, the Illuminati wants to speak to you or whatever, and they meets with the council of fucking, you know, secret elders. So like, but if everyone knew that these people were like hardcore, the source of fucking that the pedophilia activities, like, yeah, it wouldn't be super cool and mysterious, right?
Yeah. Yeah, they're trying to perfume it up now. You're right. I noticed. I
Yeah,
noticed.
yeah,
They're trying to make it all
they're making
cool
it
and
cool. Yeah, like when the
like.
normies start catching on to it, that's when you know it's a real fucking that there's something weird going on to it. There was a guy I was
Mhm,
watching recently who was like, if you look into like most science stuff when they talk about you know, the discoveries that they make or whatever, like the average layperson's not going to get a good representation of like what's actually going on, you know, sort of thing. But when you look at something
mhm.
like CERN, they go in such explicit detail to tell you about these invisible, like these particles that they're fucking searching for, like to make it like they provide all these animations and like all this stuff. Like they go so far out of their way to like handhold these people through this to give this like strong narrative that and that it's that CERN definitely isn't for something bad, you know.
You know, just a side point, kind of related. It's more zoological, but similar philosophy. You notice how, when it comes to insects
Yeah,
and like, there's this trope where they're always discovering some undiscovered species in the Amazon, a beetle species that was previously unknown, and then there's like, oh, there's 7,000 known beetle species, but there's 33,000 undiscovered beetle species, and
right.
they make it look like it's so huge, and like we're just getting we're chipping away at
Yeah,
at this whole biodiversity. It's bullshit. I think they just want to make it bigger than it really is. Like, do you really think there's 33,000 or 50,000 or whatever beetle species that are undiscovered? I think, I don't want to sound too creationist or whatever, but I really do think they want to discombobulate biblical narratives, because when you have 50,000 plus undiscovered, you know, mice species or subspecies or whatever, the whole Noah Ark story becomes ridiculous, right?
right,
And
right.
when you hear about the 10 million light years between the nearest star, I'm so anti astrophysics. I completely don't even know the metrics they use now, because
Yeah.
I
No, no,
I
dude.
boycotted
No,
that
you
who
nailed it.
field.
You nailed it. You nailed it. Like, they're still light
You
yearing
know
it
what I mean,
up.
right?
Yeah.
Yeah, they're
Yeah.
like earing it up and
Yeah,
making
dude.
it
Dude.
so inaccessible,
Yeah.
subatomic,
It's so
subatomic. Everything is so big and
yeah.
macro or micro.
Yeah. And dude, and the things that they'll talk about, like they'll like mathematically infer something has to exist because something else they figured out, like, you know, works a certain way, so
Mm,
therefore like this other thing that they just mathematically invented must be there. So they'll like go ahead and
mm,
like, you know, tell the people that like that's like a confirmation of this like invisible particle, because it's so fascinating to see science have this back and forth love relationship with the ether, and like, you know, how they've had to obfuscate it, and the different things that they'll call it and the different phenomenon they'll attribute to it, but they'll call it by a different name. So if you say, so in modern times, if you say, hey, do you believe in the ether? Like, you know, they'll call you a fucking idiot. But if you say, hey, do you believe in
mhm.
do you believe in a Higgs field? Do you believe in bosons? Do you believe in antiparticles and virtual
Wow.
particles that spawn into existence? People will be like, yeah, obviously that's quantum mechanics, baby. Like, you know, it's
Wow.
like they believe in a fucking unified field that has that produces effects
Wow. I've never
based.
even thought of that.
Dude, yeah, it produces effects based on like different modalities of like what's going on with the background, you know, back with the so it's literally the fucking ether, bro. But they
It's literally the ether.
yeah,
Quantum physics is literally the ether. Yeah.
yeah,
Holy
and
shit.
it,
They do this a lot with the semantic games and
yeah,
like I noticed that with human genetics. Like I remember the 23andMe back when I was all into physical anthropology. I was in the forums. It helped me a lot. It's why I figured you were Irish, like just
yeah,
by looking at you.
dude, that was so
It
cool.
helped like there is tangible benefit, but I picked on a lot of the bullshit. And wow, you're right. They do. It's like they only. It's such a limited pool of bullshit. They just switch up the names.
Yeah,
With
it's on.
anthropology,
Mhm. They just I'm
they
sorry, they
used to
just
have
obfuscate it.
completely what used to be back in the day was racial classifications was based on a semi-biblical type thing where there was the descendants of Shem,
Yeah,
descendants of Ham, descendants of Japheth, and the Shem descendants became Middle Easterners, Ham descendants became African, Japheth was the Europeans, and so on. Believe it or not, modern day genetics is just a recalibration of this same trope. The only thing is now it's haplogroups, right? So they have the E haplogroup, they have the J haplogroup, and then they have the R1A or the R1B. R1A is supposedly the Indo-European haplogroup, and it literally is the haplogroup that corresponds with the Japhet bloodline, and it's it's concentrated in Europe. And when you look at the history of the Indo-Europeans and so on, they claim that it started, or white people and uh, the origin of the European people was in modern day Ukraine and that area, the Black Sea region. They claim R1A started, or it's most concentrated in Ukraine, right? So just just like with the ether stuff, it's the same thing, but prepackaged in a new language, new semantics.
wow, that's crazy,
Yeah.
man.
I've never realized it with physics, but wow.
Yeah. Yeah, there was a guy I don't know his name off the top of my head, but Witsit was just talking about him. But basically, this guy wrote this big book on quantum mechanics and all that, and he was like saying
Mhm.
that it's a real shame that we don't just call it the ether because that's what it is, you know. And like they
Yeah.
have this they can't talk about it. It's very taboo because if you all the tests that they did to prove the motion of the earth, like it would invalidate it, and then like everything that they did to build up special and general relativity, if there were to be an ether, that would serve as an absolute frame of reference, which would disprove it would like physically
Mm.
it would falsify the postulates of those theories like completely, and it would reveal them to be what they are, which is just physically meaningless equations. It's just a coordinate system where they can impose restrictions to make the coordinate system match reality, and then go, hey, look what I did. But they have
Mhm.
people thinking that it's real and that there's like that space time has a substance to it, and that's the trick. So they replace the ether with they replace a background medium with nothing. They say there's nothing there. It's a vacuum. And then you're like, what's happening? There's an expansion of the nothing, but simultaneously there's the curvature of nothing, which is responsible for the orbits of everything, and that's based on it's so circular and crazy. And then if you like they have to break your mind to get you to not see that there's an ether. You know,
Yeah.
that's really all it is.
When Question for you, Alan. The whole when did it start with modern or mainstream science basically poo-pooing ether. Would that be the
Uh,
Enlightenment?
no, so in 1800s, late 1800s, they started doing laser interferometry experiments. So they were using light and splitting the beam, and then measuring interference patterns based on that. And what you could do with that is you could tell the direction of motion, and you could tell how fast something is moving, right? So
Uh-huh.
so they use these interferometers to test the hypothesis that so let's side table that for a second. So before those
Mhm.
experiments, though, everyone had been tending towards the Copernican principle being true, which was basically this model that said that the Earth is moving around the sun, and that's how they explain the planetary motions. And just a quick recap, because I don't know if you're familiar with this, or maybe your audience isn't, but I'll just kind of put it out there. So in a geocentric model where all the planets and everything orbit the sun, and the sun orbits
Mhm.
around the Earth, a stationary Earth, that there's no way to distinguish that. And in fact, if you believe in relativity theory, that perspective, that reference frame, is only a coordinate system transformation away. So just some interesting food for thought on how all that works. Um, so kind of, let's see, where were we at? Oh yeah, so everyone was believing in that, in this motion of the Earth, because it
Mhm.
mathematically explained the observations in the sky. So to actually physically test that, though, that came in the 1800s with these laser interferometry experiments, starting with a guy named Origo. I haven't looked into him yet, but then after him was a guy
Oh.
named Michelson Morley, and that experiment did not meet their predictions at all. They got an 8 kilometer. What they deduced from it, the pattern was consistent with a speed of 8 kilometers a second, rather than they predicted 30 kilometers a second. So what they did was they said, a guy came along and said, okay, well, the first guy, it's so funny. The first guy came along and said, because this is when they still believed in ether, right? They were like, okay, so there's an ether, and because the Earth is moving towards it, there's the in the direction of motion, there's like a contraction, because we're interacting with
Mhm.
this medium, so the apparatus is contracting, and it's contracting by the exact amount that would be required to give a zero result, rather than the 30 kilometers. So they basically said that they can't distinguish motion, right? But they know that they're moving, and they use math to confirm it. And keep in mind, they
Mhm.
did get an 8 kilometer per second detection, but they just rounded it to zero so that they could use these transformation equations to use the explanation of length contraction. And keep in mind, he proposed that with no mechanism of how it would work, like on the molecular structure or how it interacts, or anything. It's just purely a mathematical um, uh, story, really. So with these coordinate systems, so later Einstein came along and said, well, actually, there's no ether, and we're moving through space-time, and space-time bends and warps due to the mass of the celestial bodies. It creates a gravitational field, and that field creates curvature of space-time, and everything is traveling along geodesics, which would be straight lines. Because they completely redid physics over this so that they could keep the ball moving through space.
Mhm.
So it's wild.
I was literally, you segued into what I was going to ask you next, Einstein. But go ahead. Sorry, but go ahead.
Yeah,
Go
yeah,
ahead.
yeah.
Continue. This is good. Yeah.
So he came along and used these transformation equations, but just removed the ether from them, and said that, well, what's actually happening? And he added time to the coordinate system. So when I say coordinate system, I'm thinking like it's an XYZ Cartesian coordinate system. So they're trying to, like, that's how they describe it. So what Einstein did is he added time to that coordinate system, and so it's now a fourth dimensional system, right? And
Mhm.
anything in that system is relative. It can bend, warp, contract, distort, etc., relative to each other, each respective axes. And the only thing
Mhm.
that is absolute is the speed of light. um, and the so what they did was they said, you can't trust your measuring stick. You have to measure everything by the speed of light, because that's the only constant. If everything else is relative, everything else is relative to the speed of light. So they had to that's how they reworked, space physics, and they said that space is just an empty vacuum, because if there was an ether, right, that would cause an impedance on the speed of light, and it would cause the speed of light to vary, and that would mean that measurement within the coordinate system used to describe everything would be inaccurate and false. It would just be a meaningless bullshit, right? So that's why they had to get away from that, and they've convinced everybody that that space time, serves as an ether without an ether. It's
Through a lot of it through Einstein specifically, right? The
so so
convincing and
so
the
so so
psyoping.
so so here's what I think happened, right? He basically
Okay.
just plagiarized a bunch of other theories, because his theory that he published on, a guy like a year before him had the same exact theory. His name is Henry Poincaré, and he
Okay.
realized that it wasn't a good position to hold, because what he realized what he was doing was he was imposing mathematics on the universe, and imposing time and stuff on the universe, rather than it's the universe that imposes these things on us. So he was like, this isn't. He realized like the logical flaw in what he was
Uh,
doing, and then Einstein swooped that shit up, and then he swooped up those
mhm.
transformation equations from Hendrik Lorentz, who was an ether guy. But and also, just to be clear, what even if you're an ether supporter, what Lorentz did, there's no justification for it, and it's an equally unfalsifiable position, and they should have never agreed to length contraction, because it's the reason it's unfalsifiable is because in the reference frame that you're measuring in, you would never be able to tell, because it would have the contraction would have already happened. So it's not scientific at all. It's actually
Oh,
just it's an ad hoc explanation, reification fallacy, really, but just done through mathematics. So anyway, to continue off of to springboard off of that, Einstein scooped that up and put it in his theory too, except he just removed the ether
yeah.
component, the ether explanation, and said that that their time's dilating, right? So they made time relative, right? And it's relative by this absolute minuscule amount, that we'll never be able to physically quantify, but because they can calculate it and get like a mathematical extrapolation from this formula, they feel that that's relevant, right? And a lot of people will say, well, what about GPS, and what about this or that? GPS doesn't function that way either, because a lot of people will say that that GPS wouldn't work unless special relativity was real, and time dilation, because that's what they're accounting for with the signal delay or whatever. um,
Hmm.
and and the problem with that is, there's a guy named Ron Hatch who has 29 GPS patents, and NASA called him in to redo all their um, satellite configurations, and you'll never believe what he had to do to fix the situation. He removed the special relativity equations about time dilation and all that kind of shit, and the speed of light, all the constancy of the speed of light. And what they did
Hmm.
was he took the speed of light, and then he just added the speed of the craft to it. So when you in special, that's a real problem for special relativity, because special relativity states that the speed of light is independent of the velocity of what's emitting the light. So
Okay.
it could be, yeah, because everything has to capitulate to that constant speed. Otherwise, if it varies, then the whole thing's just, then you can't measure anything. It's all bullshit. So they've
But
really
he
back.
debunked that.
Yeah, so yeah, and anything that debunks that, like there's laser interferometry experiments that debunk the constancy
Mhm.
of the speed of light, and they'll say that, well, that's a special case and it doesn't apply to relativity theory. Like it's wild, dude. So uh,
You notice something about going back to Einstein himself.
yeah,
Like this guy supposedly lived right at the cusp of the broadcasting era, the
yeah,
1940s and so on.
hmm
Okay, we all know Albert Einstein. Ain't it funny how there's so little surviving video uh, footage of him actually explaining shit? Uh,
dude,
um,
your pattern
when they talk about the
recognition was on point.
1940s, like 1940s, Clark Gable, there's terabytes of him talking. Humphrey Bogart, whatever his name was. Uh, the Frank and Lloyd Wright brothers. There's footage of them talking. Albert Einstein, and this is my theory. Like it's all back to the actor-based reality stuff.
Hmm.
I honestly think Albert Einstein was a dumbass, like
Dude, well, you know,
a legit actor.
dude, well, you're into the linguist, so you know what Einstein means in Germany, right? In German, right?
No, no, no. What?
It means stone. So you're basically
There
so
you go.
so if you're an Einstein, you're as smart as a fucking rock, right?
You're
So
a rockhead.
yeah, you're a fucking dumbass.
They
So
kind of
yeah,
revealed it a
so
bit, saying
so so
his wife was the smart one, and
so check this out, bro. You're on point with your pattern recognition once again. The historical archival footage of Einstein, he's always reading from a script. Never
there you
ever
go.
does he vary from it. He
He's
lived
off
in
the cuff.
he quote unquote, or not quote unquote, he lived in America for a hot minute. And he never learned any English or got better at it or anything. And I'm sure there's people that that's like I don't know how you could move to a country though and like not start picking up the language and like, you know what I mean? Especially if
Especially if
you're
you're in
because
academia.
he's in academia teaching people. So did he go into these lecture halls and fucking read from a script and like not like be able to like interact or answer questions? It's so crazy. And so there's actually some documentation where people would like physicist students that sat in on these lectures, they were not allowed to question or laugh at Einstein's presentation because what from these people's perspectives that they've written about in these books, like what he was proposing was so goddamn ridiculous on the face of it that that it was hard not
They
to
were
just not
laughing.
that it was hard not to just laugh in his face while he was talking about it because what he's
He was being
saying,
absurd. Yeah.
yeah, because what he's saying basically is like, so if you're standing on the sidewalk and you're watching a horse and carriage go by, is the horse and carriage moving over a stationary earth, or is the earth rotating under the horse a stationary horse and buggy? You can't tell the difference. And then like he's not saying that like philosophically or like mathematically. He's saying that like that's a hard reality truth based on this math equation. And yeah, like they literally policed the lectures, and you would not graduate if you did not capitulate to this nonsense.
Yeah.
So yeah, they
One
rolled
thing, they really protect their minions a lot. Like
they went
even in the
hard.
entertainment world, like with
Yeah.
Joe Rogan,
Oh
he never
yeah.
allows phones in his sets for his comedic sets because he's not a comedian. He was. I'm just using Joe Rogan as an example of them controlling the settings. Like Joe Rogan, his front is that he was an actor, stand-up comic. I don't think so. I think he is like the benchmark influencer, Einstein type, but because he's not like they don't want him to go into a science field, they made him go into a podcast and
A podcast field.
entertainment field. Yeah,
Yeah.
I swear to you, that's literally how shallow their thinking is. But just like they controlled Einstein with
Yeah.
ridiculous rules about not laughing at his lectures and things like that. They control, you know, the Joe Rogan narrative by having people absolutely not, uh, do certain things in his shows. So it's so blatant. And the funniest thing, when you look back at the Cold War and the 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 stuff they were saying about the Russians controlling their citizenry, the Soviets controlling
Oh
their
yeah.
citizenry,
Yeah.
they were amateurs compared to the West and its control over its people.
Yeah.
Like the
It's really
illusion
fascinating.
of freedom. It's fascinating how powerful they are in this. It's magic. It's literally magic.
Yeah, that's why I really like your term waning magic, because like you're seeing like an entropy effect where it's like they've had such a successful stranglehold with this magic, and that
You're right.
what's that?
No, I was just saying, subhanallah, you're right.
Oh
It's
yeah,
like a literal entropy.
yeah,
It looks like the wizards are dying.
yeah. Like their spells suck now. Like we all grew up with computers and graphics and video editing and shit and green screens. So like now we all see the mistakes. We can all reproduce the ISS, like from like a 20-minute YouTube tutorial. Uh, it's just not um, it's just not a tenable position to for them to like keep faking. So it's going to be really interesting to see the end outcome of it. I think that like obviously they're never going to let go of it. So, but I think it's going to be
Mhm,
interesting to see how bad it gets for the people that still believe in it. Like,
mhm.
because it's so bad right now. Like it's just crazy. Um, and then when you really look into the narrative that they have built up around these people and the science behind it, I mean, it's just like I go through weird phases where I get kind of bummed out about it, where I'm like, man, they really did a number on us, and then sometimes I'm like,
It's
man,
so
it's so it's
all-encompassing, yeah.
so it's so powerful. How could they not? I mean, if you figured it out and you just were farming people, I mean, fuck it, right? Like it's just, it's nuts.
When I get bummed out, I think about how, like, is this for real? The disclosures, all the stuff we're getting, it makes me almost think like, you know, this is me being political scientist mode, but Anwar Sadat, the president of Egypt, who was assassinated by Islamists in 1979 for signing the peace deal with Israel. The real reason he was assassinated, uh, they sicked a terrorist on him. But that guy, the guy who killed him, had grievances because he was tortured by Anwar Sadat's military police apparatus. You know how it is in the middle. They got a guy with a grudge to assassinate him, but it was the U.S. State Department who assassinated Anwar Sadat. Why? Because he wanted to develop Egypt into an industrialized power,
Yeah, yeah,
and he had long-term projects where he was going to use hydroelectricity from the Aswan High Dam, and Soviet uh, engineers and advisors. He was willing to use IMF loans. He was playing ball. He was doing what a good diplomat was doing. But the thing with Anwar Sadat is he was 12, 13 years into his rule. He started learning things. He started understanding things. Keep in mind, these guys, um, I don't think they have the actor-based reality down pat in the Muslim world yet. They will soon. They did peg body doubles on Saddam Hussein and all that, but it's still, the Middle East is still not psyop central. There are psyops. It's just not. It's still kindergarten. It's not PhD level psyops.
yeah,
I think assassinated Anwar Sadat because he got initiated into how these guys operated. He got wizened up. I think they are initiating the majority of humanity because of Agenda 30. I think they know, they know that in their mind, the 2030s and the 2040s, there will definitely not be 8 billion souls, 9 billion souls, or whatever on this realm. They think it will only be a billion tops. They think the majority of us will be dead. So
yeah,
I think they're letting, they're going to initiate us into our demise, into our collective assassination, or they're trying to. But I believe in Allah, and I believe that whatever plots they have going, Allah has superior plots, and uh, if it wasn't for a greater power sabotaging these guys, we would have had World War III in the 1960s. That was their trajectory. They wanted three world wars in the 20th century.
and they wanted that three
Uh,
piece.
oh yeah. They were going to synchronize the Third World War with the space bullshit and all that. The Cuban Missile. Something happened to avert the Third World War. right? And I think they're having a third another shot at it. I don't know if it will happen this time around
Yeah,
with the
they,
whole
they they really want it to go down, but I don't think people are falling for it, man. I don't think there's a motivation. I don't think
holy
Americans are
shit,
as gung
bro.
ho to do it anymore.
Americans, especially Americans,
We're
are
realizing that
lucky because
we're the fucking empire, you know?
you, you you know there a few good men, eh, and a few good men meaning maybe I guesstimate about 300, 400,000 college educated people who were in the bureaucracy, who have like a Christian background and so on. I think that's what led to the satanic panic. I think the satanic panic was the first initiation, and surprise, surprise, it came from America. The 1980s and all that. I think it was people who had a Christian upbringing who got thrown in this power that be nexus, but their Christianity was strong enough that even if they did sell out for a bit, their conscience ate them up. So they revealed in the way they could, not directly. I honestly think uh, what I call it middle management, the people who are like someone who's a mid-level uh, careerist at the FBI, some Irish American guy or something like that, who played by the books, and then he sees the bullshit once he reaches a certain level, right? I think they're the ones who let the satanic panic happen, and I think we are getting a bit of disclosure now from the same few good men cadre. Uh, and that's what's leading to the waning magic happening. But
Yeah.
they are really pushing it. They are really pushing a third world war, and I think because of this middle management revolt coming from the American,
A middle
uh,
management revolt.
yeah,
That's such a great way to put it.
I have to patent this term because it's so beautiful. It's so beautiful. It's so appropriate, right?
It
Like
really
the
is.
the the people who saw the Mar-a-Lago warrants, and then they have to follow through, and if they don't, they have a mortgage, and well, they too much at stake, so they have to revolt some way. So they go on YouTube with an anonymous profile, or I'm telling you, a lot of the disclosures are from middle management, and it's because of this that they are trying to set up the Chinese. uh, they think Chinese don't have this revolting spirit, rebellious spirit in them. And like, if you think I'm being racist to Chinese, believe me, these
Oh
guys
no, like
are
dude,
1 million times more racist.
yeah, they're the ultimate racist, which I totally respect, man.
They're
I'm
the
totally
ultimate
fine.
racists. Yeah,
Yeah, yeah. I mean,
yeah,
your people are your people, bro. You know what I'm saying? So,
yeah. No, they want to groom a Chinese middle management and an Indian middle, like India Hindu middle management. I
yeah,
think that's going to be my next stream. Is going to show the coming marriage between the powers that be and Indians, not Native Americans, but Hindu Indians, the ones with the dots in their heads,
yeah,
because they've calculated, and keep in mind, a lot of them have from the Anglo-American, the Anglo-American nexus, have experience with colonialism and ruling India and so on. They know these motherfuckers are complete psychopaths, right? And if you find the right Hindu toady, or if you groom the right Hindu American cadre, man, they will bend over backwards to fulfill your agendas. I think that's what they're doing now. The Eurasian pivot is
yeah.
Russian military tech, Chinese and Indian middle management at the expense of American innovation.
Yeah. Dude, you know what's crazy? I have a buddy who's in like cutting edge, software development, in engineering and all that, and
Hmm.
he attends a lot of conferences and stuff, where like the high level, new stuff that's coming out and all that shit. And
Oh yeah.
he says all these conferences, dog, there's less and less Americans, and it's literally just Indians or Indian people.
I'm telling you, it's going to reach a point. The H-1 visa system that they're handing out to Indian engineers to and professionals to work in Silicon Valley, it's going to be pre-selected Indians that they know will make good
Oh, dude,
lapdogs.
another Operation Paperclip. I mean, it worked so well the first time.
You're going to see it before the 2024. Just pay attention to this next political uh, theater spectacle. Watch how out of nowhere you're gonna see a lot of Indian faces in politics. Like they've
Oh,
already had the CEOs in Silicon Valley
yeah,
become Indianized over the years.
yeah. Most of the
Now they're
CEOs
going to
and all those
are
industries.
Indian.
Yep.
Yeah, they're all because they make perfect lapdog. They can't really use the Chinese because they have to make this kayfabe with Chinese technology theft and all that, and pivot to the Pacific World War III. But the Indian power shift, you're just going to be amazed. You're gonna hear speeches by these with American accents, not boopity boopity. No, you're gonna hear them speak perfect American.
Yeah. Oh yeah, dog. It's coming, huh?
Yeah, Nikki Haley is what's her name? Nikki Haley. She is Punjabi. I found out. I didn't even know she was Indian when I heard about that politician. I honestly thought she was a white politician with a tan, but she is Indian.
That's
She changed
right,
her
dude.
name to Haley. She has an Indian name. They're gonna do that now. They're gonna have Indians with names like
My
Todd
boy
and
Jeff.
Jake and Jeff. And they're going to be the face of America, and they're going to talk about white picket fences and make America great, and you're gonna be like, wow, we're like they Obama, but in an Indian type facade.
That's gonna be freaking awesome, dude. I can't wait.
My next prediction. You say I make a lot of forecasts.
Dude,
There, you take that to the bank.
as you're saying it, I already like it's I can see it like so clearly. It's
And another pattern recognition. This is with the bank failures and all that. You notice how I noticed this back in April when they had I forgot the name of the bank. First Nation Bank was the largest bank failure since 2008 or something. You watch this correlation. You only heard it. You heard it here first on from Bokore, or you're gonna hear it first on Space Audits channel, and then I'm gonna repeat it on my channel. Every time a new country signs or applies to join BRICS, another American bank will fail.
oh
Because
shit.
I noticed this correlation when Saudi Arabia applied, not even approved or got in BRICS, but when it applied to BRICS, Saudi Arabia and Iraq and a bunch of other countries, these huge banks in the US a day later failed, right? So it's complete wealth transfer. They're basically withdrawing their money uh, from American banks,
Dude,
or they're de-dollarizing.
yeah, that's so interesting.
So
And how they'll spin it in the public is just like through these crazy narratives. Like they'll give like
yeah,
they'll give some retard explanation, and everyone will just be like, "Yeah, that checks out." Damn, dog, you're
yeah,
straight
exactly.
killing it, dude. This is why we pay
Yeah.
Bogue the big bucks, by the way. This is
Oh,
why this is why when you go to his channel, you won't see that many videos, but you'll see some to get your taste wet. But you'll see that he has a
mhm,
member section. This is where the
mhm.
that's where all the gravy's at, guys. Definitely worth it. It's
Yes,
$2.99, the most affordable membership you'll ever afford. Anyway, continue.
yes,
Sorry.
and uh, like I basically when it comes to these forecasts, I some of them I'm missed. Like I'll be straight up. I predicted the Iranian regime to fall by New Year's, and that didn't happen. And I was wrong about that, but I knew something was up in that neck of the woods. What happened? The Chinese brokered a peace process between the arch enemies, Saudi Arabia and Iran. And now they're opening up their embassies. Flight from Riyadh to Tehran and Tehran to Riyadh are resuming like nothing happened. Yemen. The Yemen civil war is basically a reset. It's like the Yemenis who are shooting each other. They're basically they're basically told, hey, kiss and make up. And these guys actually hate each other, but because everything is a hierarchy, they actually have to go and kiss and make up. The Houthis and Ansarul Islam and so on, they have to actually make up because of the Chinese. And this is something Americans aren't privy to because the media doesn't want to explain it in the way I am, but it is a power projection. They are waning it in the West, and they're giving the magic wand to the Chinese.
Transferring the torch, man. And
transferring the torch.
Yeah, and you could see that because like now they're gonna try. Yeah, that makes a lot of sense because what they did with the last couple of years, they said a certain country was responsible for a certain thing, and they tried to get everyone super amped up and believing that like the patient zero came from a certain country, and like due to certain circumstances involving a lab, and like they tried to push this narrative early on about how there was a weaponized situation and all this stuff, and they tried to amp this up, but the public didn't really go for it. And then because they kind of flip-flop between that and like a story about a bat soup, and like they were really trying to pin it all on China, to get us to be pissed off at them because they're about to become the new magic lords,
Well said. And this playbook is also not original. That's another thing. They don't have original stuff.
So when they give China the magic wand, we're gonna covet the wand because we used to have the wand and we need to get the wand back. And then so like maybe 100 years from now or generations, whatever, we'll be all amped up hating the Chinese and like we'll take the wand back and but we're not actually taking the wand back. It was never ours. It's just going to be facilitated through these false narratives as mechanisms.
Yeah, they're just going to have the pendulum.
Dude, that's awesome.
The pendulum, will just swing back to the West, and then you're going to be like, oh, those evil people, the evil administration in Beijing. Finally, it's coming down. Finally, look at them crumble. But it's just an old ass tired playbook. And this bat soup stuff, remember with the sex disease of the 80s? I notice that playbook being bullshit with Africa because
completely different they claim disease symptoms.
Completely different. But then here's the thing. This is one thing. It's a religious thing, but it can also be explained by the religion and the environment not allowing access to the same NGOs who messed with the Africans. Where was the ground zero for that epidemic in Africa? It was Kenya, Uganda, and Ethiopia, right? And these countries, these three East Africa countries, they had sometimes 15% of the adult population was positive, which with the thing, right?
Yeah.
Right next door, Muslim Somalia had a 0.09%, like lower than Russian rates, lower than a lot of European rates.
Right.
And the only difference between Somalia, the land of chaos and piracy and all that, and Kenya, Uganda, and Ethiopia was the former, Somalia, was a no-go zone for the NGOs, and Kenya, Uganda, Ethiopia was ground zero, especially Nairobi, Addis Ababa, and Kampala. They were ground zero for these NGOs to set up shop and, inject people with, you know,
Juice,
whatever gunk.
magic juice.
Yeah, whatever magic juice. And before that, you know, this is just a personal bias. Um, the Kenyans were and the Ugandans and the Ethiopians, they were molded, you know, with the missionaries and the Christian missionaries and everything to trust the NGOs,
Yeah,
right?
yeah.
So when you go to Kenya to this day, right? Uh, I like. Please, I know you're a white man. Don't take offense. This
Yeah,
is true. This is someone from
You're good,
Africa
bro.
who noticed this, right?
Yeah.
If you go to Kenya, if you go to Uganda, right? If you go to Tanzania, to almost a similar extent. If you go to Mozambique, Zambia, South Africa, Nigeria, basically most of the sub-Saharan African realm, you have to teach these people that they're equal to the white man. The default setting is the white man is superior,
How did
and
they do that? That's crazy.
they did that through colonialism. They did that with having, you know,
What?
white doctors, white clinics cure thousands of people from polio and so on.
Huh.
White technology, white Europeans building roads. The whole, you know what? I always maintain the biggest white supremacists are in Africa and Asia, not even in America, right? However, if you go to a place like Somalia, right, and I believe it's because of Islam more than anything, Somalis do not see uh, Europeans or Americans or Canadians as their superior by default. If anything, they see them as their inferior. You know, no matter what, you know, different technological or living standard levels the two may have, they see them as being their inferior because they are infidels. These are godless people, or whatever. So when an NGO goes to Mogadishu, they're not going to have people, queue up for.
Yeah.
And that is why there was no epidemic in Somalia. There was no
Yeah.
epidemic in Mauritania.
Yep.
But neighboring Ethiopia, same genetics, same people, just
Hmm.
different mindset, different culture, became AIDS, HIV central. Mhm.
And they
Oh
generate
yeah,
the
I let
pandemic.
you know, by the way, just to give you a heads up, they're really, you know, going after this kind of talk. So, you know, we gotta be really
Oh,
coded when we go there. But you know,
yeah.
I co-sign. I
Yeah.
completely co-sign. But
Yeah.
just because you told me something before we went live that
Yeah.
happened to your
Oh yeah.
channel,
Yeah. 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 Oh man. Yeah. Totally blanked out. Yeah.
yeah,
It's just fascinating. Like they just use the same thing to do it.
mm,
Yeah.
yeah, they have a set of playbooks, and I don't know if it's because the newer generation of magicians aren't as good. Everything is in decline, even the psyops, but they do have a few uh, regular stuff, and that's one of it. The medical, and the other is the go after the kids first, and um,
Yeah. Get them to
uh,
trust in these institutions and yeah, just submit to whatever they say. It's so fascinating because like okay, so you know how You were saying that like if I were to go to one of those countries, like they would think that like I'm superior to them just because of the color of my skin. People think that like
Oh
acronyms
yeah,
of institutions are like like dictate their lives and are better than like know how to like know what to do with their children better than they do. You know what I'm saying, dog? Like how crazy
it's
is
so
that?
yeah,
It's like a fractal, just like
like
slightly different. Instead of a person, it's a fucking entity. It's a corporation. You know that wields the power.
yeah, yeah. It's so one of the most powerful institutions in Canada. I'm sure it's the same in the States. Is this group called the Children's Aid Society? And sometimes all you need to do to mess with a family is just to call up the CAD and tell them, you know, parent X is messing with child Y, and that's it. That you know that C or whatever Children's Aid Society, they're going to be a living nightmare for that family. So we give them so much power just because of our belief in these acronyms.
Yeah, belief in an acronym, dude. Like this or this entity, put out a thing that says that we should all do this if we want to be, safe and secure and all that stuff, and we should just blindly follow whatever it says. And then we're like, yeah, sure. And it's like, why would you put yourself in it, like, especially in a situation where they kept changing things up, like just to break your mind? Like, it's just fascinating that people didn't snap out of it, and a lot of people did. Now, so check this out, Bo. So the conditions where people would be able to like look into things and stuff like that, and like have their own opinions rather than just getting it from the news real quick, because they have to go to work all of, but like the lockdowns kind of facilitated where like people were working from home, had a lot of time, so like a lot of people came to started waking up to these things, like flat earth and other
The
things
lockdown initiation, yeah.
yeah.
That's what I call it, the lockdown initiation, right?
Yeah, a lot of people came out of that. What do you think they have in store for us? Like, are they just like, are we such a non-factor to the overall situation that there's nothing we could really
Uh,
say or do to impact it?
Unfortunately, I think so, yeah. Two things. Number one, remember Edward Snowden and the
Yeah,
whole
yeah,
NSA reveal? I think that was them saying, okay, it's time to show these people they're being controlled. We're going to do it this way. And there's nothing you can do about it, right?
yeah.
And I think that's what he served. He literally just, his whole purpose was to announce, you guys,
Was the
you're being
disclosure?
watched. Bye.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah,
He, like in 100 years from now, when people look into the Edward Snowden story, it's going to be a young guy emerges out of nowhere, tells society they're being watched, and then he disappears to live off in another country.
yeah.
That's
And give
so. I
virtual
think
presentations from the rest of his life. Like
I,
it's so crazy.
so. Yeah, like another bullshit actor.
And you know
Like
what's
I think
crazy too, because of the virtual presentations he does, like no one, like they could, that guy could be dead, and they could have a guy wearing a green screen mask, and then like they have like the they have the technology to map like what Snowden would look like over a talking head basically, and you would never know. Like that's crazy.
oh, Alan, if you believe that they release things to the public only after
Yeah,
they've like they've only released Chat GPT,
right.
in 2021. They
Yep.
probably had that stuff
Oh, dude.
2 generations back. I don't know if you've seen this website, these people don't
Yep.
exist.com, or
Yep.
these
It's
people don't really exist.
yep.
I bet you they have video tech of non-existing
Oh yeah.
uh,
Yeah.
folk, right? So who is to know now? What you think they're going to do? I honestly think because of the civil wars behind closed doors, I really do think we are coming to an end when it comes to this access to information age, this information age. They're going to use the China U.S. rivalry to claim, oh, there's a shortage in superconductors and all that, or they're going to claim the Chinese are going to destroy underwater cables. Next prediction, compartmentalization of internet. There's going to be internets, and they're not going to be equal, and they're going to have different informations. There's going to be a China World Wide Web. There's going to be American World Wide Web. There's going to be, a raggedy Pakistani one, a raggedy Mexican one, right? But it's just going to be super compartmentalized, and Americans won't have access to the Chinese one. Chinese won't have access to the American internet, and we're already seeing the gateway of this happening with them banning TikTok, right? This is the first step. They're going to make they're going to attempt to have us in compartmentalized cages instead of the big open cage, right?
Dang,
Basically,
yeah.
a
No, totally. They have to, bro.
feudal system.
They have
Oh yeah,
to.
it's going to be a feudal system, but technologically based feudal system with different serfs who can't really trespass into another feudal realm, right? And then there's going to be outlaws. There's going to be a bunch of Robin Hoods, but I don't know how good or capable they're going to be, you know, living outside the new feudal system. But uh, there's this Muslim scholar. I, I don't really. I think now I kind of see him as a Russia shill because he cheerleads more for Russia than anything. But I'm going kind of off base. This guy says the best future you could expect with the most happiness is basically being a goat herder or tending goats in
Dude,
some obscure mountain.
that would be dope, to be honest with you, dude. Like, I kind of think that'd be
Honestly, I'm
awesome.
looking forward to a.
Like, I kind of can't wait for that to happen. Where it's like, can I just own a
I'm telling
mountainside
you, yeah.
now?
When please, yeah, like when we all become Talibans, like an American Christian Taliban, a
Yeah,
Buddhist Taliban, a Mexican Taliban, right? Fighting against the system, I think those guys will be the happiest.
yep, absolutely, dude. The people that have their own homestead will be the happiest.
Bingo. The Owen Benjamin Talibans.
Yeah, yeah, dude. It's true. It's true, man. Really good insights on the situation, man. Really, some interesting predictions have come out of this. And
Hmm.
yeah, I can totally see the internet thing be the way you're saying they'll do to the internet, because they just can't let us have kids. I don't know. I mean, I guess they could, because we had so much access to information to destroy the any narrative they put out, really. And by their own accord, they give it to us. Isn't that weird, Bo? They deliver the information to us in such a way that it's like even a normie could find it, but they just don't, 'cause they don't care. But we find it, we get all amped up about it and tell the normies about it, and it reinforces that we're wrong somehow.
It's the same philosophy the with the warning on the cigarette pack. Um, they are, believe me, they are a religious entity. They have an aqidah. Aqidah is an Islamic term meaning a credo, right? And that is part of it. The reveal is part of it, and uh, it's still you know it's still sick. But they do, like you said, they do make it easy if you want to
Yeah,
actually resist. They make it easy.
they
It's
make it
easier
they
to
make it they
resist.
make it so easy. But like,
It's easy, yeah.
especially for like an active op. I mean, uh, yeah, we can talk about this one later, actually, because it's crazy. Like, it gets into the thing that got the strike earlier. But like, yeah, it's so crazy, the information that they just had sitting there for everyone to read, and like nobody, like, and then like the people that did it, it had no impact, really. I mean, it might have saved like a couple people here and there, but like overall broad spectrum in terms of like, why wouldn't this information go viral? It can't. right? Like it's not physically possible. So when you see a viral something happening that's trending, like just know it's not genuine at all. It can't be, because if there was a genuine thing trending, that would mean that they don't have control over it. And actually, no, that's a bold statement. They might co-opt a natural thing and like let it propagate, but yeah, it's when something's really fucking coming out, and really going hard and making its rounds, like that's when it's to just be on the radar, like, oh, this is probably some sort of thing, some sort of social experiment.
The like social engineering is their core
Mm-hmm.
more than anything. They are shepherding us into one way or the other. Like that's their
Yeah,
whole MO.
yeah. I'm really fascinated by the social engineering aspect. I feel like a lot of the social engineering things and the way they do, I can kind of see like a trajectory of like where they want to go with it, how it would affect someone, like, based on like not having a full understanding of the information and what their reaction to it would be. Like I can just see like how it's just an interesting tool, man, and I can't help but kind of admire it a little bit, like the stuff that they do and how it all works, because it is really interesting. And if you don't know about these things, you don't know how to protect yourself from them. And that's
Yeah,
and that's
we
the
are
real issue, is
literally
keeping
lambs.
keeping people in ignorance, like, is how they do it.
Well,
You have to educate
it is
yourself.
admirable. It is admirable, but at the same time, we only have, as a human, they take advantage of the limits, like the biological limits a
Yeah.
human being has. We only have access to, at most, and Matt mentioned this, quantum of consciousness. Like, we only have access to, at most, 3 generations of information. Like,
Hmm.
your parents and your grandparents warning you about life, or
Yeah.
giving you heads up on life. These fuckers have 5,000 years of data
So much.
collected and
So much data.
documented, and right, so
Yeah.
they know things, they know how things end up. They played out different simulations in their, they have basically things and tools that we can only dream of, and still, with all these advantages, this is where they are, and a lot of them are miserable too. So
Yeah.
in the end, who cares?
Yeah.
Like,
Yeah. I'm
in the
just
end, Allah Akbar.
Yeah, for real.
God is greater.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I'm just glad to have eyes to see it all. It's like watching a play. It's very interesting, right? It's not
Amen.
just,
Yeah.
you don't have to be afraid of it. You don't have to get all hyped up and emotional about it. You can just go, oh, this play's taking a really interesting turn of events.
I swear that perception is the difference between a smile on your face, or panic, like existential panic.
Yeah, and dude, and the existential panic is where they want you, because when you're afraid and confused, you're easily manipulated and you're predictable,
Oh
and
yeah.
yeah, it's awesome to like almost have an outside perspective of the system, to see it,
Mm.
and it's really interesting when you try, like, because I'm sure, well, have you ever tried to wake anyone up with anything like any ops or anything like that?
Oh,
Like, what is their general response to it? Because I know Matt talks about his family just completely doesn't, not receptive at all. Going through the last 2 years, my family actually had a complete transformation and are way more receptive to new information. So what kind of experience have you had with waking
with
people up?
my family, um, my dad was at first very resistant, but not disagreeing. Almost like, come on, man, I'm hitting, or I'm close to hitting my 70s, and you're gonna try to
Yeah,
reset my, like,
yeah,
leave me alone, dude. Like, that
yeah,
was his mindset. So I did leave it alone after a while. And
yeah,
then you have people, my mom, like, she's too overwhelmed with uh, a lot of pain and suffering, to be honest, to
yes.
even
Same here,
have the
bro.
luxury like she has
Dude.
osteoporosis and
Yeah, dog.
uh,
Yes, dude.
or she
Yep.
has so like we talked like she she knows as much as she's not a politically
Yeah.
themed person, but I remember one time, this is before this is before it even entered my mind, right? uh, we were this is like 15 years ago. This is when Obama was president, and Michelle Obama came on TV, and my mom said, no, this is she's bigger than Barack. This makes no sense. Why did he marry her? Like, as she was just talking about Michelle Obama being too masculine in a serious way. Like,
Oh, yeah.
what's wrong with this woman? It's not ugliness. It's almost something else,
Yeah,
right?
she's got that piece.
She got, and back then I didn't even go there, and
Yeah.
my mom went there. So
Yeah, your
so
mom knew what's up.
and
That's
my mom
hilarious.
loved Obama. My
Yeah.
mom grew up in Kenya, so she loved Obama, and
Oh, yeah.
but her angle was, he's a successful young man. He has the world by his oysters.
Yep,
He
yep,
could have
yep.
married any girl. He marries this. He marries this beast, and that
Dude,
was her.
your mom knows what's
Like,
up, dude. That's hilarious.
she knew what's up more
This
than my dad. More than my
beast.
dad. Yeah.
This
But she
beast,
she
bro.
framed it in a motherly way, right? She didn't frame
Right,
it in like Michelle is a man. Like, she didn't go
right,
there, but
right. That's so
so.
funny, dude.
But I honestly, besides immediate family, uh, I don't. I okay. I'll give you an example. I was training. I went to this one company to train a bunch of their employees on this new type of forklift that they purchased en masse. So I was there for a month, and I got into a good relationship with the operations manager of that plant. He was an Ecuadorian guy, really cool guy, and he started asking me about the vax and all that, and uh, he could tell I was being evasive just out of being professional, right? But he could tell I was the anti. He was smart. He could tell I was the anti crowd, even though I was being diplomatic and not really going there. And then one day, while we were just me and him, he said, "They are trying to kill us. They're trying to curb us." And then I said, uh, he, "Hello, yeah, these guys are sheep herders, and they see us as sheep, right?" And
Yep.
then, but I didn't want to go deep.
Yeah.
They don't know I have a YouTube or I'm online or anything like that. And then he's like, "Yeah, but we gotta do what they say." And I instantly just lost so much respect for him because I saw his colonial third worldish, you know, the master wants to cull us, we must comply. Like, he said it. He's like, "There's too many people on this planet." He said it, and he said, I think they decided it's time to cull the herd. And I don't know. Like, do you agree with this, Mr. So and so? He said, "Hey, if they say it, we gotta do. We gotta do it. It's for the good of humanity." I'm like, wow, you literally are giving them agency over us as a species. So if they decide, we cull the population by half, you think it's for the good of the planet or the good of humanity? And he said yes. And I hated him from that day. From that moment, I just
Jeez.
like I hated him. I didn't want to have an argument or anything. I just had a contempt. Like, I just lost respect for him. But
Yeah, you're just
we
like, oh, you're
maintained the work relationship. But there are so many of those type in public that I don't talk like I do with you. I don't talk like that in public. It's
yeah.
just, there's already so much against me, that I don't need another layer, you know.
Right.
I don't need another layer to give me a red flag. And I guess this applies to all of us. Like, if you're in a public setting, you don't know, like, your neighbors can literally get you evicted uh, based on a throwaway sentiment. Next thing you know, the landlord will post a letter saying, he needs you evicted by the end of the lease because he's renovating the premises or some bullshit. But really, like, it's because of your beliefs. So you don't want to
Yeah.
politicize yourself in this environment. So I keep quiet. I'll be
Yeah.
honest.
Yeah, absolutely, man. You really can't, uh, you gotta feel out the other person a lot before you just start speaking your mind in public. It seems these days.
Oh
Otherwise,
yeah,
you're gonna suffer, financially or socially or both.
yeah. The shadow banning uh, on online is one thing, but once they do that in real life, holy smokes! Then
Yeah,
that's another thing. Like, are you prepared for that? No, I don't think anybody is.
yeah. It's wild, man. And then and
Mhm.
that in and of itself is a mechanism that prevents, and it's like a self-containing system where like you couldn't even get information out to anyone anyway. Because like say you did like give somebody some gravy, like what are they going to do with it? They're not going to be able to like tell everyone about it. They're going to just forget about it and sleep on it and go back to whatever they have to do to get through the day.
Honestly, that's why I have huge respect for this middle management revolt process that's happening. That's kind of trickling down stuff to the masses. I have much respect, and the similar things is happening in the Muslim world. People are actively getting tortured in black hole sites for
Yeah,
revealing stuff, but it did not get to that level here yet. it, I don't know if it ever will. It's just, you know they're not as ruthless yet. They don't have the same kind of megalomaniacs running the dungeons here yet, but who knows? It might be like that in the future. Who knows? But for now, I have a lot of respect because the people who are doing the fight behind the scenes that we don't know their faces, you know, a lot of them are suffering consequences that we don't know about.
yeah, true.
Getting death threats and actually getting killed or
Yeah,
so on. It's a war.
yeah. It's a information war.
Civil war, yeah. It's an
A
information war. It goes into different realms. It gets personal. Families get, threatened. Oh, it's ugly.
Yeah, dude. I can only imagine what that side of the Power Nexus looks like when you're in on those games. That's actually. Have you ever? I'm sure you've seen the movie or heard of it, the Dune, but like
Mm.
the book series,
Oh, though, yeah, yeah,
dude.
and
All the stuff that they
mm,
go into about what it's like to being like in the royal family, like having like the assassinations, the subterfuge, the fucking everything that goes along with it, the poisonings, everyone's always trying to kill you, like.
intrigue. Yeah, it's
Yeah, you
ridiculous.
dude, I bet you it's probably like that. Like there's always this constant fucking like, are you trying to kill me? Even though you're my brother, or were you secretly not my brother? you know, it's
Man,
crazy.
the power, like, it is a cliche, but it's true. The Ottoman sultans, the caliphs, and this is, as Muslim as it gets. So I'm saying, if this is happening from my go-to uh, uh, my go-to cave of goodness,
Yeah,
Islam, right? My
right.
my my solitude of goodness is Islam. So even in the Islamic realm, when you look at the biographies of the Ottoman caliphs, the mothers of the harems, they were setting one son against another. Like some kid who came out of her womb, they were assassinating in favor of another son. Or what would happen more often, frequently, this is, you could imagine this. The Sultan has a bunch of harems, and each harem is trying to promote her son to the throne. So they have a lot of intrigue, and each woman has its private army in the bureaucracy, and they manage to assassinate the other harem's son. It's so weird how, like, when you deep dive
Jeez.
into the Ottoman sultans, it was the actual wives and concubines who were running stuff behind the scenes in the palace, in the
Dude,
harem. It was
a li-
them who was running the politics,
dude, a
and
little
they were
bitty.
doing a lot of killing,
That's crazy, man. That's I mean, that's right out of Dune, dude.
fratricide,
The secret,
yeah, fratricide.
the secret, running behind the scenes is a organization run by women. in Dune.
Oh yeah,
It's very, very reminiscent of that, the Bene Jesuits.
royalty are ruthless because 90%, or no, not 100% of royalty, it's like that quote from Scarface. You first have to get the power, right? So these guys, they got the power first before the Al Saud today, they're all fat, decadent hedonists. But Abdulaziz bin Saud, the founder of Saudi Arabia, this guy, he was a bandit. He led an army. He was Alibaba and the 40 Thieves. He
Oh
was a
yeah,
highway robber. Yeah,
nice.
this guy basically used to hop walls,
That's awesome.
hop. Yeah, he was a thug, right? So all these royals, they got into power through being reptilian type,
Snakes.
ruthless snakes. Yeah, they were serpentile, power hungry mofos. So when you see the British royalty and these clowns, they have like Prince Charles and so on, and I mean Prince, the ginger kid and the king and
Yeah,
so on.
yeah, yeah.
Like,
The
they're
ginger
not
kid.
royalty. They're not royalty. I'm sorry, they're
No.
actors.
Yeah.
They they're not royalty.
Who are these
To be a
people?
king,
Who's the real royal throne people in England, or is it just all a facade
okay.
propped up by something
I
else? Who are these people?
I think I think these people are actors. They were brought in same time as you know, Ger- you know, Germany. People sleep on Germany, man. Like Bavaria uh, was the home of the founding of the Illuminati in 1789. The House of Windsor is a German family. The royal family, the British royal family, they're not even British. They're Germans. Look this up.
Oh, dude, I heard about that recently.
They
Yeah,
they are
dude.
Germans.
Yeah.
There's photos
They're
of a
not
young Queen
even.
Elizabeth.
Yep. Yeah.
There's photos of like a 12-year-old or 13-year-old Queen Elizabeth doing the Nazi salute.
Yeah.
And these these people, like I didn't really deep dive into their biography, but no way do they have anything to do with the Norman conquerors. Or
Yeah, that's what I was
just one look
thinking.
at them, they it's like Zelensky, like
Dude, how
Zelensky, the
how
Ukrainian guy.
how fascinating is that
Like,
story with him being a literal actor in and playing out his role in real life that he's in now. How
man,
how crazy is that? Like, what do you think about
I don't
situations
know.
like that? Like, how does it
It,
happen?
it, it's such a mind boggle. But then it makes you realize, if you remember how I said they have limited playbooks, if they're doing this with this, by the way, Jewish actor Zelensky, and then claiming that Ukraine is a hotbed of neo-Nazi sentiment, and they have this one or two battalions in the Ukrainian army called like Azov, who are full-on Nazi, and they all have swastika tattoos and so on. You're like, man, is this just a mini version of the whole German National Socialist Democratic Party, the German National Party, and their anti-Semitism? Like, to me, it's just like Hitler was the best thing to ever happen for the state of Israel. Without Hitler, there would have never been an Israel, right? And how can you call the Nazis anti-Semitic if their actions and the Holocaust led to this all-encompassing, powerful militant state smack in the middle of the Middle East, right? And if you look at the Ukraine, Zelensky, this nobody actor, he is kind of repeating the same thing. Like, he is leading all these Nazis while being a Jewish actor into killing Russians.
I find
and at
that
the same
super
time,
fascinating that these ethnic
it's
supremacists,
so bizarre.
yeah, because these people that he's around are actual like badass Nazi dudes that like, you know, got bodies, you know, to for their cause, and like they're being
they
led
call
by a
Russians
Jewish
orcs.
actor. It makes no sense.
It makes no sense. They call the Russians orcs. Like, they use Lord of the Rings
Yo, dude,
terminology.
yeah, that's hilarious. I mean, you know, dehumanizing people isn't hilarious, but it's just crazy that they literally look the same, you know, and like
They literally look the same.
they're
That's the other
basically
thing.
they're basically the same people, you know, just slightly different border, and and they're like, you're a fucking orc dog.
Man, imagine someone like myself looking at this. I am laughing. I'm laughing like, a Ukrainian and a Russian is literally like an American and a Canadian,
Right.
if not even more than that. It's like, you guys are so similar to outsiders. But then again, it's another Achilles heel that is in humanity. The biggest beefs are always between people who are the closest. Like, look at the Rwandan
Mm,
genocide, the
yeah.
Hutus, or what happened in Yugoslavia. If you tell a Serb and a Croatian or a Bosnian that, hey, you guys are all the same, like, they will literally kick your ass. Those are fighting words, right?
Shit.
But to someone like us, can you really see the nuanced differences between those groups? No. But the powers that be, they know that the passion embedded in us makes us really invested in personal beefs, right? So
Hmm.
it's the family. It's kind of alluded to in the biblical story of Jacob and Esau, right? And the
Yeah.
birthright and all that.
Oh yeah,
So,
yeah. A lot of jealousy, a lot of
so
betrayal, a lot
the
of
jealousy
espionage
and
from the mom.
betrayal,
Classic, dude.
yeah, the classic, playing favorites with one child. It's the human condition. So
Mm.
these people, like I said, we only have at max three. If we're lucky, if we come from a good family, good upbringing, we have three generations of, hey, watch out this, watch out for that, watch out for that. These guys have 5,000 plus years of data to
To work
just
with.
browse from, to work
Yeah.
with. Yeah.
Dude, imagine knowing some of the actual truths of this place, like the actual history, or as close to, you know, of truth as you could find. Because, you know, obviously, if you go to Google right now and type what happened 400 years ago, you're going to get absolute fucking trash. But, like, imagine, like, actually having information where you could, you know, just know what happened. That's so interesting.
So scary. It makes me doubt the, like, everything
Oh,
the Google Earth
yeah.
realm. Go ahead.
Oh, I was going to say,
Like, all.
do a couple of streams ago, or I don't know, it's
Mhm.
like a month ago maybe. You did this episode on Chinese history and how it was fake, and like you saw a lot of parallels with like a big events happening, aligning with the certain group's favorite numbers. You know, a lot of 33s and stuff like that.
Oh, yeah.
So,
I'm seeing. Go ahead,
oh,
Alan.
okay. So get this. I came across this guy called Anatoly Fomenko who's using the eclipse cycles. Or have you heard of him?
Oh yeah, I'm typing out his name on your
Yep.
Discord. Yeah, that guy, he was interesting. I come to find out he's a Ukrainian, but
Oh, is he?
this is from back when Ukrainians and Russians saw themselves as one. So now, if
Nice.
he lived now, he'd be like, "Fuck Putin, fuck that." But back
Yeah.
then, he was working in the, state Moscow University as a professor and so on. But yeah, this guy basically said the calendar we have is bullshit. A
Yeah.
1,000 years has been added to it. What else did he say? You remember?
I just started diving into it, so I'm not exactly sure what he says like overall about the stuff, but from my general understanding, he basically uses the eclipse cycle. It's like we were talking about earlier, the sky is a clock. And once you know the pattern of it, you know, it's cyclical, so you can reverse it and you can project things forward and see, you know, what's going to happen again. So anyway, he took the eclipse cycle and, you know, rewound the clock, so to speak, to see if they would, to see if like eclipses and celestial events that were documented aligned with historical events. And what he found was that, like, you know, in certain time periods when this and this was documented as happening, it couldn't have possibly have happened because, according to the cyclical nature of the sky, if you rewound it in that time period, it would have been like 1,000 years off, or you know what I'm saying? So like stuff like that. And then so what does that mean? Well, it means that the historical narrative has been you know, artificially written to support a different timeline, either longer or shorter.
So like humiliating, but at the same time freeing, because I have a history major, right?
Yeah.
And I was so invested in the curriculum that they gave us,
Yep.
and you know, it kind of gave me a chip on my shoulder that I knew all this and I
Yeah.
knew all that. And then when you step back and you're like, hold on, did Napoleon even exist? Did, you know, like it's humiliating. Humbling is maybe a better term, but it's
Yeah,
you know,
humbling is
it's
good.
I don't believe
Yeah.
humbling is good. Yeah, I don't believe, because I when I looked at Anatoly, I could see the agenda behind what he was doing. You know, he was part of the Cold War Russian attempt to shit on Western achievement,
Hmm.
right? So his motive was the Industrial Revolution. Fuck that. It never happened, right? Like exactly the same motivation behind the Tartaria stuff.
Oh,
By the way,
dude,
it's from the same.
I got that in my notes.
It's the same
I wanted to
people.
get your take on that because you have such an interesting take on it. Everyone in the pretty much everyone in the flat Earth community, in you know, quote unquote truth movement or true Earth movement or however you want to look at it, is super into Tartaria. Like
Yeah, I
like
see them as useful idiots.
they're balls
Yeah.
deep into it. And the one of the
So
guys, I don't know if you're familiar with the Iwaranon guy, but I guess he put out like the what would be the word, like the magnum opus of Tartaria work, you know. And then like a couple months later he went back and said, hey, you know, I may have jumped the gun on some of this. I'm re-examining some stuff, and you know, certain things that I thought, you know, were a certain way aren't. You know, he basically just, you know, undermined his whole work and said, you know, he has to look further into it, and you know, blah blah blah.
brother,
And
if you want something, go ahead.
yeah, I was gonna say, and a lot of people were like, they turned on him, and it was like, you know, if he really felt like, this is just analyzing it, you know, if it's a normal genuine thing, it's like if he felt that way and went through that and realized that he made a bunch of mistakes and assumptions and leaps of logic, and then, you know, wanted to correct it, you know, good on him. But the reception to it, people like immediately were like, you don't know what the fuck. They told him you didn't know what he was talking
The
about
betrayal, yeah.
on his
No,
own on his own research, you know, and all that kind of shit. And that's like, all
it's so
right.
hilarious. Yeah, like it's the daddy thing you were talking about happening
Yeah,
to him.
yeah, literal daddy syndrome. So like to see the Tartaria affect people in such a daddy syndrome way, I'm like, oh, that could be a potential op, you know. But there is a lot of interesting things to it. But yeah, so go ahead and give me your take on what you think the Tartaria situation is.
Okay, what I think is, first of all, you can take this to the bank. You can take this to the bank, Alan. It is resting on such a shallow foundation, such a like a house of cards. It's gonna crash. It's gonna crash hard. I am looking forward to, but you know, there's a lot of snake oil type who, you know, these types, they will just brush it off and move on to the next grift.
Yeah,
But I'm banking on it crashing hard, and I'll be one of the only voices, one of the first voices to call out for what it is. It's a Russian psyop. It's from the same cadre of people who put out, number one, believe it or not, the QAnon stuff. Number two, believe it or not, the protocols of the elder of blah 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 stuff 100 years back,
Yeah.
and Anatoly Fomenko. Anatoly
Yeah.
Fomenko and his attempt to hit on 1,000 years of Western history. I was into Anatoly Fomenko until I kind of stepped back, Alan. I stepped back and I said, "Hey, this guy, he has a lot of compelling points, but he is really just focusing on shitting on the Protestant realm and Martin Luther and the Renaissance and stuff like that. Why isn't he shitting on the Indian civilization and their chronology of events?
Well, interesting.
Or China.
Yeah, interestingly enough, so when you like Wikipedia him, you'll find that he has a 7-volume series, and I found another series of his that includes the first 7, but it goes on to 22. And he goes over Ukrainian history. He does the same thing to them. He does Russian history. He does China. He ends up going through like all of them. And he has one.
Okay, my bad.
Yeah. Yeah. So like, I don't know. Cause like I kind of came across some information about what you're talking about, how it's just the Russian op. I found a really good research paper where this guy was like critiquing his work and just basically kind of outlined it in that regard. And, so I was like, oh, okay. Don't take everything as as truth just because he's reverse engineering the clock to make it all happen or whatever, but just just be aware of that. So yeah, he does go into the history of these other places, but I haven't read into those yet, except for the Chinese. I started dabbling in it a little bit, and what I wanted to tell you about what I found just from like the first couple of pages I read is he was referencing the beginning of the Chinese eclipse book, and he goes through the problems with Chinese astronomy, and basically they have pre-16th century, they have no records of like, what's a telescope, how they discovered the telescope, what's it do, how they, used it to, track stars, and like what corrections they had to make to, make predict, like no, like here's the process of how we got here to have this explanation of data, you know what I'm saying? So like that right there was gone, and they just have this one guy basically that recorded everything and did everything and made all their observations and stuff, and the data that he has recorded, it's basically the same exact data as official European history around the same time in the 1400s, and it has the same gaps where in official European history there's no recorded data. So like it literally lines up perfectly with European history. Like they literally just copy pasted European celestial observations into a Chinese timeline and attributed like a fake historical character to making the observations, like literally the same exact playbook as they did with America with heliocentrism, where like they're like, this guy Eratosthenes measured the curvature of the earth with the sticks and shadows kind of shit. It's like, it's not even a real person.
The circumference stuff.
Yeah. It's not even a real person. No tangible way to verify it. A lot of history is what's it called, where instead of the person writing the thing where it's firsthand, it'll be somebody writing about something that they did, like it's crazy.
I think it's called apocryphal or something like that, right? Apocryphal.
Yeah, it's always like these weird secondhand unverifiable things where like somebody just mentions the name and they're like, yeah, that's good enough to verify him as a historical character and validate all his work that's presented to be done by him. Yeah, they do the same. Like I started seeing it immediately. Like the fact that they match up, it's just like, that's over. They don't have a history of how they got the tools. Like, because if you look into European history and all that, and like you'll find, the history of the tools, how they made it. You'll look, what they did, the corrections they had to make, all the, the different formulas they were applying to it to make predictions. Like, none of that. They just have the data and the observations and a story about a guy who did it all for them. It's fascinating, and they probably teach that to children over there in China. So like they got a fake history too. So I think that Tartaria and the fake history stuff may be a Russian psyop, but it also might be true. Like all of it might be fake.
we are definitely victims of a Neoplatonic uh, schooled elite, and these guys, they follow the principle Plato wrote about in the allegory of the cave. For
Yeah.
us, they want us to basically be cave dwellers who don't see the full picture.
Yeah. They have to be. I mean, that's really the only way that you could do this to an entire to the entire world, really. I mean, there's nowhere
Absolutely.
really that this isn't happening. I mean, uh there was this, like, if you look at the history of American wars, I mean, what is it, like every couple of years we went to a country, body bagged it, replaced its leadership with democracy and the Federal Reserve, and now there's no more countries except for, like, I think two Muslim countries that are still not on that grind. And even then there's
Oh,
still
right, yeah.
and even then there's still probably, some shady shit going on. But like, it's just so fascinating that, like, once you have that level of control over a population and they're submissive to your financial system and your debt system, you can just be like, hey, these are your new textbooks for your history. We had our scientist guys write it for him. You guys are too stupid to figure it out. You got
Yeah.
So here's the history of the world. We'll catch you guys up to date. And would you guys like a space program? Well, we'll come in and install everything and show you how we did it, and pass it off to you guys. Because once they get the systems set up, like, it's all, they could just run simulations and have people go to work every day and pretend like they're doing something. It's really fascinating how it all works.
Yeah, the puppeteering, the amount of strings they have and they're pulling is just,
Yeah, and
yeah,
it's
it
like
is
literally
enviable.
every fucking country.
Man, it is enviable. But uh, the one thing that keeps me centered is my faith, my deen, and knowing that you know, they're expert plotters. I'm quoting the Quran. The Quran says, your enemies, they're good at making plots, but your creator also makes plots, and
He's the
he's the
he's
ultimate
the plot
plotter. He's
master.
the best.
Yeah.
He's the plot master. Yeah, exactly. Literally, you said it better than me. إن أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم إنهم يكيدون كيدا وأكيد كيدا فمهل الكافرين أمهلهم رويدا. So uh, they are great plotters, but my plots are superior. So let them plot
Yeah.
away for a limited time.
Yep. True, man. It's Yeah, and they'll always end up shooting themselves in the foot, but it'll always probably be just good enough to maintain the mechanisms of control. And if that's the way it is, then this place that we're in is probably specifically designed for us to go through exactly what we're going through at this particular time. Otherwise, there wouldn't be
Mhm.
it wouldn't be allowed to happen, because this is just fucking nuts. So that right there tells me that we're here for some other purpose, to get through these
Absolutely.
some sort of illusionary matrix system of where I don't know, but there's more to it than that. And it's so obvious the more you wake up to what they do to you, just to maintain the illusion. Like, they teach us about Alexander the Great and conquering the world as if that conquest stopped. Like, as if at some point along the line people were like, hey, you know what we should stop doing? Conquering everybody and taking all their shit. Like, that's not very cool. But like, we
Yeah,
literally we're doing it every fucking couple years. We're like, we got to get another country, got to get another one, got to get another one. I mean,
yeah. They're making it seem like, oh, now we're all just
yeah,
parliaments and Congress and you know uh, rules of engagement, and everything has a process. But no, it's a
no,
jungle, man.
it's
It's a
fake
jungle. It's might,
processes.
yeah, it's a might makes right world. And uh, they do have rules of engagement because they are a religious group, but they don't have any qualms of hiding things from you. They have no responsibility to you as a person in that sense. They can deceive you with no guilt.
Yeah, it's an interesting, and you know what? yeah, that's really uh fascinating how they do that. And they've, and we have, like, moral restrictions and obligations from our understandings of everything. So like we don't operate
Mhm.
on that plane. So like so for a lot of people, like they can't imagine what it would be like to fucking farm other human beings. So
To be a shepherd,
yeah,
uh, like, but
yeah, to
yeah,
be in
I
charge of
don't know.
these, because yeah, it's super fascinating how they'll like control industries and like all the, because how they have this, how there's this illusion that monopolies were broken up, and it's like, the same parent corporations still own like
Oh
literally
yeah,
everything. And then there was just actually a recent consolidation of one of the parent corporations into another one, so like even more stuff just got owned by the other company that pretends to not own everything.
and these companies, because of the way they're structured, they're a couple hundred plus years old. You know,
Mhm.
their lifeline is long. It's like twice as long as the average human.
A lot of
They're
them
going
trace
to
back to
exist
Nazi
after.
families too, like people that were heavily involved in the SS and stuff. Like whoever owns Dunkin' Donuts, like the company that owns
Uh,
that owns them, the Nazi family. Like they got all their money from robbing dead Jews or whatever.
I would not be surprised.
Yeah, it's
I,
crazy.
the way that they make it seem like it's a fair playing field, you can just
Yeah,
rags to riches.
dude, any old person could just have an idea, and it's like the only way that that really happens now is when you come up with a new data collection aggregate, aka an application for your phone. And then
Mm.
what happens is you get a bunch of money investments, you go public, and then your boardroom people fuck you over or whatever. Once you're in the fake financial injection money system, like it's over. And like they use these like cases of selling the illusion that that's possible. Like to achieve that for the average person. And, if you just work hard enough and, you can own an industry too. It's like,
And
no,
then some Elon Musk type actor will
dude, we got to get on
reap
Musk,
all the
bro.
rewards.
We got to talk about Musk a little bit because that's what's really going to draw the my crowd into your work. So let me talk about.
Mhm,
Let me give the boys a little prelude into
mhm.
your work on Elon Musk. So I don't know if it's still available on YouTube. Is that video still available?
I no, I don't even think it's in the members, but I might have privated it, but I'll dig through the archives
Yeah,
to
if you
pull it
can't
back
find
up.
it, let me know because I have it downloaded because it's a great video.
Oh, okay,
I made a copy
okay,
of it. But
good.
yeah. So anyway, examining when an actor steps in to take over an entire industry or to step in and like play this larger than life Iron Man role to give people to rally around the technology involved in these industries and this submission of like wanting to be a part of that, and to be like this larger than life genius and be a part of that. Boke did a really good analysis of that in the back history of him, and how you can see like where the CIA and these agents, literal fucking agents, step in and like take over. And you know he doesn't like do things and like make deals and shit. Like he doesn't have money. He's just completely controlled opposition,
And no, yeah,
funded by the CIA. So, Boke, if you want to take it away from there, we can get into your analysis
it's
of it.
the actor based reality thing. Like, you could choose any major character, but Elon Musk is a good one when you look at his background, his mom, his dad. It's just it's one of those, like, you know,
Well,
cooked up bios. Like, are they even his real parents? Like, it's just everything. Yeah, everything about the Elon Musk thing is just
it's so
is
fascinating when you get into the court records of him, where he basically what happens is he just leverages himself in the company and becomes such a nuisance that they to get rid of him, they pay him off and sign disclosures and allow him to rewrite the company history where he to give himself credit for the thing. Like imagine you're actually the brains behind a major operation, and you're willing to get you want to get rid of this guy so bad. You're like, you can say you made it, bro. Just you take it. Just be
Yeah,
gone.
the amount of
Just get out of here. You smell like shit. We can't run this place with you walking around here. Just get out. And you're literally willing to just let history be rewritten without your name in it, even though it was your idea, your baby, your technology. You wrote it. You breathed life into it, and you're just like, let this guy take it, just so that he gets the fuck out of here. Like that's
well,
that's
the
that's what
levels
people that
of
get into Elon Musk are dealing with.
it's yeah unreal amounts of like extortion, and when you have the CIA backing you, like
I could see family threats too and shit to get
family
people to
threats. Oh
yeah
my goodness,
yeah.
yeah.
Hey, I didn't even think of that because it's not even about just how dumb he is. It's like the force that comes behind maintaining the illusion of prestige, which is the CIA. So yeah, obviously they're gonna have a guy go talk to talk. Yeah, I didn't. Yeah, yep,
They're gonna have some guy sit down with you and say, as ridiculous as this character is, we can do X, Y, Z to you, and they'll prove it and demonstrate it.
yeah,
Then and and there will be no recourse.
yeah.
And sometimes you wonder about people who like like all these sick monsters who are found with uh, like there was this case of this guy who was found, who had a girl, some Austrian guy who had a girl in his basement. Um, some sick guy from Europe somewhere, and he was apparently torturing his daughter. Or so, I don't remember the details. I just remember when I looked at the story. Wow, the first thing that came to my mind was, can this be a humiliation ritual for a guy who wouldn't play ball with
Yeah.
some power that be? Like
Yeah, dude,
that's what they're
literal
capable of doing.
cartel shit. Like, in case anyone thinks that the CIA, just because they're a American agency, quote unquote, or whatever that means, that they wouldn't do this
Mm.
stuff, that they wouldn't do some cartel shit to us. Like, you're mistaken. But anyway, go on.
Yeah, no, that uh, when you have such backing, man, you could. When I see him, like I'm not an eloquent person, like I stutter and everything, but I know when there's depth behind someone speaking.
Right.
And I'm sorry, Elon is just a shallow mimbo. He's not smart. I'm sorry, man. Like you're
No,
smart, but Elon, no, I don't see the I see a charismatic guy, but I
I don't
don't
even
see
see
a
charismatic,
genius.
really. Like,
Oh
he's
yeah,
so
well, yeah.
dumb.
Even that I don't see.
Like,
He's not even like I see
yeah,
a guy with gravitas. Like and
yeah.
it's not even his own creation. Like it's because of the
It's,
story around him.
yeah, it's just
But
the
you're right. He doesn't
mechanisms.
even have the charisma. Like he's just a nobody, a
He's,
nothing, a big zilch, and we expect to think this is some genius.
yeah, and people, yeah, it's it's wild, like how invested people are in his character, what you can
Yeah.
do with that kind of stuff to people.
Uh, People will need tropes. Like there are so many British and non-British people invested in the royal family in a tabloid type
Yeah, it's
investment.
fascinating because it's like, why would you
It's
care
like
about these people? Like, they're literally they literally think that you're shit.
you
Like
literally think you're shit,
that your blood is disgusting. Like, if you met them, like, they wouldn't shake your hand
and
because you're
Alan,
gross.
the the thing that really grinds me is that has been universal with all monarchy, royal, like the royalty or whatever, the dukes and the earls, aristocrats, right? But this British royal family, they're literal clowns. They don't have any of that like majesty, like His Royal Highness.
No.
No, Harry has no highness about him.
Dude,
Meghan Markle, she looks like a failed actress. Like she failed at being like a made-for-TV actress. That's the vibe she gives me.
she was on a
Meghan
show.
Markle.
She was on a show called fuck, what was it? It wasn't the best show. Like, but she's not. She wasn't like, you didn't watch the show because of her acting. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, yeah. She's
Like
just a
she,
zilch.
yeah, she literally is just she's pretty, but Yeah, she wasn't.
But that's about it.
Yeah, she wasn't
Like they
really
couldn't.
part of anything. You know, I think it's fascinating that how so you know these people in their bloodlines and stuff. How are they doing this? How, is their marriage even
I honestly
real,
think,
or is it just fake?
Alan, uh, in my this is like I have no. This is a gut thing. I have no research or anything behind it, but uh, with the British royals and most European royals, like the blue bloods and all that, I think they're all fronts. They're all Elon Musk's actors and so on.
Yeah,
The absolute monarchs in Saudi Arabia, they do have real power, like real political power, but they have a fake backstory. Uh,
yeah,
but the European monarchs, they're all just failed actors to me, and I think there is a monarchy. I really do think there's like a British royalty, but they are so experienced with ruling and with social engineering and human manipulation that they figured, or maybe this is true, this has been true for the last 2,000, 3,000 years, that it's better to be a hidden king or behind the scenes and then have a
yeah,
fake king as a facade. Because, you know, the anti-Semitic crowd, they claim the Khazarians, uh, who are what the Ashkenazi Jews descend from, they claim that the Khazarians operated this way. They had a secret king, and then they had the facade king who would actually meet with dignitaries and the public and so on, like a body
oh,
double, right?
yeah. It's
So
interesting.
I'm thinking, you know, it's just a political science thing where you don't reveal yourself to the sheep, and you have these clowns like
Yeah,
Charles,
you know what? I
uh,
bet you.
William, Harry.
Yeah, so you know how
They're
in history they talk about how like so and so was beheaded because the people revolted. I bet you that happened like legit one time, and they were like, "Oh, we could never expose ourselves again. We need actors." And then you know what I'm saying? So like you know when a family you know gets overruled or revolted against and like gets killed, like it's not an actual loss to the power structure,
Mhm.
and they can just swap in
Yeah,
another one and be like, "Oh, this is you know, yeah." It makes a lot of sense because like you got to think about like what would it take to like maintain this illusion and facade long term and and operate everything and not be a target, not have somebody constantly out there who can be like, you know, everyone knows who the Rothschilds are in the truth community, right? But like, who are the people that we don't know, right?
that's it. Yeah, what do they look like? Where do they live? And
Like
and
the
this is
fact that
us, you know.
so, yeah, the fact that Baron Rothschild has a fucking movie about him that's like, if you watch it, you can see that he's like, it portrays him in the most disgusting, crazy manner that like you can see like that these people aren't good people. Like that's to make that's like you know like like truth or softcore porn or something. You know, it's like get your juices going and
Absolutely.
get you all fired up over the red shield guy. Like, did you know that that means that it's the Rothschild shield and it's the red? Like, who gives a fuck, dog? Who's the guy that we don't
Didn't
know?
they
Who's?
didn't they have what's his name? Mel Gibson direct that movie?
Oh no, no,
Or
this was like the Baron
oh
Rothschild movie was like a black and white thing like forever ago.
okay,
Yeah,
my bad, my bad.
yeah.
I thought I heard Mel Gibson was gonna make a Rothschild type movie.
Oh, I'm not
And you
sure.
know how they used Mel Gibson to be the
Yeah,
voice,
yeah, to be
the
to
the
be the
the,
outlet. Yeah. What do you think of the
the
Kanye
outlet
thing
for
and going on with all that?
man. You're psychic. See, Kanye is the idiocracy version of Mel Gibson. Every 10, 12 years, they're gonna have some
They do
celebrity
they do like a juice
do
word.
that. Yeah, it's so.
It's a juice
One good thing
word.
about this is the juice.
There's all this built up
Now,
Jew animosity, and then like they do a juice word.
yeah,
That's
that's what
hilarious.
it is. It's so yeah. What a lot of good terminologies coming up from the stream. But
Absolutely.
juice squirt every 10 years. Uh, 2006, 2007 ish. They had Mel Gibson
Yeah, I remember
do
that.
it.
I remember that.
Oh
And
yeah,
I
I
didn't know
remember
anything
it.
about Jews, but I was like, oh, he's super pissed off with those guys for some reason.
I know, and they kind of follow the same playbook where, oh, he's so unhinged. Oh, we should pray for his mental well-being, and oh, he's having some domestic problems. Oh, like with Mel Gibson, it was his little um, little mistressy type thing where he leaked some fights they had. Um, he was some model, some Russian model, and Kanye, he's having his divorce with the Kardashians and so on. So they do that, uh, but it always amounts to nothing. It always amounts
Dude,
to a
nothing.
big fat
Nothing.
nothing. And
Nothing.
Kanye took back everything he said, and it it kind of I was fortunate to have been monetized on YouTube already. By the way, my monetization is nothing. Like I don't I barely have 20 members, right? But the people who are my members, they are like almost all of them. They're our caliber. Like
Right.
they don't
Exactly.
take guff, right? That's the good thing.
Exactly.
So
Yeah. Dude, it's
it's
better to
better to
have
have
20, 20 soldiers than fucking 500 guys that can't tie their fucking shoe.
yeah, a fish brained nothingness, right? Because when Kanye did the whole reveal, guess what? Everybody jumped on the Jew hate shtick. Like everybody became an expert on the parentheses and oh, those evil K words, and everyone like downloaded a little anti-Semitic thing in the internet, right? From people you wouldn't expect. And at the same time, these are people who have no idea what's going on in Israel, Palestine, for instance. They have no idea what's going on with the. They don't even know the in-depth history of World War II or Ashkenazis in Europe. How long they've been in Europe? They've been in Europe forever. Like there were Jews in Spain when the Carthaginian Empire supposedly existed. There were Jews in Spain, right? So there were always Jews in Europe before even something called Christianity was a thing, and like I kind of dove deep into the history of Judaism and the Jewish people, and and the people who are anti-Semitic after Kanye became anti-Semitic, they didn't do that, right? They just became anti-Semitic in a kindergarten level, and it kind of made me so like disgusted with the masses. I almost became elitist. Like I hate cookie cutter woke type like oh, the Jews, they control the Fed. You don't know diddly squat about the Jews, man. Don't slander these people, right? Because they're good Jews who actually, they follow the
Exactly.
Torah and right, and they're completely oblivious to the slander you're giving them. And I
Right.
know about that because, I've lurked in, and you could imagine this. You could imagine me doing this. I lurked in like Islamophobic forums to see what sort of things they're saying about Muslims,
I mean, the best
and
way to do it is to find out what your people are saying if they're going to post it publicly. I mean, fuck it. That's a
no,
good way to get
so
direct insights onto what they're thinking. That's what they do to us,
you
bro.
that's what they do. They make the enemy seem a lot more powerful and capable than he is.
Mm,
Man, if you go to like an evangelical Christian Zionist forum or channel or something, and you ask them about Islam, wow, the Saudis are controlling Hollywood. Oh, even Alex Jones was talking about the Arabs run Hollywood. Like,
really?
come on, man. Yeah, it's you
That's
give
so funny.
you kind of like gaslight your enemy so that he becomes something worth having all this passion over, this hate, right?
Right.
So that's what they're doing to, like, the anti-Semites. That's what they're doing, and I think Kanye, knowingly or unknowingly, I lean more to the latter, right? And it's not because I think he's an idiot. I just think this is not his expertise. The guy is a musical genius. He doesn't know about social engineering or the Tavistock Institute or political scientists or right.
Yeah.
So I think they they pushed him to do this kind of to test the waters of, like, sentiment, like
Yeah.
how far middle management is getting people, uh, how the youth are going to react. And another thing is
Yeah, they
it's
use it as
also
like a
tied.
metric gauge to see. Yeah.
It's
So
a
like,
metric gauge.
yeah, dude.
Uh,
Ooh, that's a really yeah.
it's
Man.
it's 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 big. I'll tell you this. You only hear it from me because I'm kind of like dipping my toes in two realms: the Muslim world and North America, and so on. Um, Israel is kind of on its last legs uh, in its current format, right? Jewish, ethno-state, uh, Western-leaning, and so on in the Middle East. They just they just don't have the demographics, and there's also civil kind of strife happening between the irreligious Israelis, the liberal Israelis. Basically, like in America, America has, you know, political camps who can't stand each other. It's happening in Israel, and I think the powers that be noticed that there are elements in Israel who want to cut ties from the waning magic of the West, right?
Yeah.
They're seeing Zionists groom these Hindu lapdogs. They're seeing Zionists steal tech from Silicon Valley and hand it over for dirt cheap to China, right? They're seeing this in real time. So there are elements in the CIA who are part of this middle management revolt trend. And I think they might have gotten into Kanye West's ear to, like I said, gauge the metric, right? They are building a case for anti-Semitism to take hold in America, so that when Israel uh, gives America the finger, they can basically dismantle Israel, and they can uh, they can use classic Christian anti-Semitism, whatever Kanye was talking about, all that, right?
Yeah.
They can use that fodder to accelerate the controlled demolition of Israel. They invested heavily in Israel. First the British and then the Americans. You think they're just going to sit idly by as the Israelis pivot to China? No, they're going to have, a power nexus here. Do these metrical experimentations, right? But this is something that's 5, 6, 7 years down the line. We're seeing it with Kanye. It's gonna be in other aspects. You're gonna see the media really push Israeli atrocities soon and be surprisingly pro-Palestinian. But if you're a Arab or a Muslim listening to this, don't bite, because it's not to serve any political agenda for the Palestinians. It's more as a safety gauge to protect the Anglo-American realm from Israel pivoting east. And
Yeah.
Kanye is a part of this. Sorry for the the long,
Oh no, you're
but
good,
yeah, but
man.
Kanye's part.
Yeah,
Kanye was part of that.
that's awesome, man.
And to end this, it wouldn't surprise me if it was a Jewish group, right? These are like long-sighted uh, types, a Jewish elitist group who are doing the puppeteering with regards to Kanye, right? Because maybe because of the civil disagreements in Israel, right? The camp in America who does not like the direction Israel is taking, maybe they're Jewish too. there is an inordinate control, or not control, but influence. I believe it's merit based, but in entertainment from the Jewish community, I wouldn't be surprised if it's a Jewish nexus, power nexus, controlling Kanye to make him say these things, just so that they can control the narrative. Very, very, micromanaged. They don't want to annihilate their families in Israel or anything like that. Maybe all they want is the dual citizens to come back to America, right? Maybe they
Yeah.
just want, Shlomo in Tel Aviv. He was born in New Jersey. They don't like where Israel is going. They just want him to return to New Jersey. They have a job for him at Rutgers University lined up, right? So
Yeah.
maybe that's what's happening. I do know they are dismantling Israel. It's happening. They're using Netanyahu. Um,
Yeah,
there
didn't
is
they bring him back in? Didn't he lose an election or something? And like now he's back.
he's back in, but he's super weak. He has a clownish coalition.
Wow.
They can't stand each other, but they're basically coalesced because the other camp is against Netanyahu's policies. It's a strange time. If you're paying attention to Israeli politics, it's a very strange time. And my only explanation is it's the U.S. State Department upset with Israeli middle management revolting, and they are the ones, in Sudan. They can do arms smuggling, and people, they have control of thugs in Sudan and the third world where they can have an armed conflict type setting. But in Israel, they can have crazy protests and legal fights in the courts, in the Supreme Court, but it's all controlled from the U.S. State Department. That's what I think is happening. And it's a smack in the face of all the people who are saying Jews control America. No, guys, it's the other way around. America, the Iranians had it right. Israel is the baby, little Satan. America is the great Satan, right?
Little Satan, little baby Satan.
Yeah, the
Yeah,
baby Satan. Yeah,
there's something going on where it's backwards, and
it is. It is. Yeah. Just to go it kind of on a tangent there. Watch for this. There's going to be talks of a two-state solution. It might be Chinese brokered, but believe me, the U.S. State Department won't fight it, right?
yeah.
Palestine is going to be like hardcore repped in the UN out of nowhere. Not because of Hamas, not because of any Palestinian
Right, not because they voted
intifada
on
or
it
anything.
and got their independence or anything like
No, no,
that.
no.
Not because
These
of like the
guys,
right to self-determination.
they could be invisible
Right.
for all the no, but you're just going to see a two-state solution, and the settlers are just going to be demonized, and you're going to be like, where the hell is this coming from? And if I have any Muslim listeners listening, you know, don't be celebratorial because you are not the psyop. You are not the intended audience. The intended target audience are the Israelis, and the purpose is for the liberal, more democratic leaning Israelis to just return to the West. The ones who have American passports, Canadian passports, British passports, they want them back. They don't want them living in Israel anymore.
Yeah, dang,
So
that's
that's
fascinating.
forecast.
Yeah, because we don't
Yeah.
really hear about that kind of stuff or get those insights, because we're so as enamored with the Jews as our media and everything is, we don't get
Hmm.
the details on what's going on over there. At
Yeah,
least
it's compartmentalized.
it's
I
so
swear to you.
compartmentalized. It's so when you talk to people about compartmentalization, they're like, "What's that? What are you talking about?" Like, how do you not understand? Like, if you have control, a 100% control of all the distribution of mass information, and you only told this part of the country something, and you only told the other part of the country something, like, what do you think would happen?
Like the one thing that might save us is prison breakers from one compartment, but doing it in a slippery, salamandery type way, like I am, with coded speech and doing it online, and being soft spoken and like speaking and educating people in the other cage. Like if more Americans do what you did, um, and expose like the Emirati Space Agency. It's a budding thing. It's brand spanking new,
Yeah.
but this
So
worship
you
of
know what that?
science.
Oh, sorry. Go ahead.
No, but the worship of science and the belief that the pinnacle of science and technology is in America and so on. That's wholly embedded in the Arab world, right?
Yeah.
So if people like you can break that compartmentalization, and then you have the credibility of being an actual American who speaks in English and so on, and you're not putting like I'm using a joke. Patrice O'Neill uses the late comedian. He says, "Yeah, you don't put marbles up your ass like to discredit yourself, right? You sound sober. You're a credible person, right?
Yeah.
Like it's compelling. It's going to open up minds, and I
Yeah.
hope
Yeah.
I
Definitely,
achieve the
dude.
same.
Yeah. Any
And we
other
need more of
stuff?
that. We need a Chinese guy. We need a Hindu who is an insider to the Hindu Anglo-American marriage and the grooming of Hindu leaders of tomorrow,
Dude,
right?
we
Like
gotta.
I
Yeah,
need. I'm looking
we
for
need to
the Indian
form.
dude.
We need to form a group of this and connect all these
I
people.
swear to God, Alan, I was so close. I'm married to an Indian, uh, and he kind of connected me to this Hindu in Waterloo, Ontario. But I think he saw through. But he still sold on like the war on terror, and
Ah, that's
like he even
unfortunate.
went. Oh, he even went to university to what was the program? He specifically chose this program, something about cyber security. Like
Oh,
it was one
okay.
of the most
Yeah.
selective schools in North America, and he got accepted. He's an Indian Hindu, and this guy is basically like. And I noticed this about Indians. No offense to Indian people, but whatever like they go into, they ask is hard, right? So he was kissing the ass of like the U.S. State Department and its war on terror and everything.
Uh,
And my wife connected me to him, right? And she was
yeah.
like, I want you to debate this guy." And we were basically, but it got ugly because
uh,
he wasn't budging, I wasn't
yeah.
budging, and then he blocked me on Facebook.
That
So I
sucks.
was so close. I was so close to basically getting an insider, like an Indian insider, admit to me a pattern that I'm recognizing, which is they're grooming Indians to be the future middle managers because a lot of the white guys are fed up, and
Yeah.
um, like a lot of I don't want to keep saying white guys. A lot of the American guys, like there's African Americans in middle management positions who've seen things, and they're trying to do their reveal in the way they can, right?
Yeah.
So I'm seeing now that the powers that be are basically cutting off the American uh, grooming line, and they're grooming a new set of sheep to do their.
Certainly seems to be that way. You can,
Mhm.
when you start to take all the industry out of a country and then you make that country's sole purpose going to war and, killing everyone and taking over their shit, and then you run out of stuff to do with that.
Man,
That's kind of a wrap. So now we got a bunch of people that um are displaced and then they don't know what to do, and everything that they thought how society works and functions is falling around them, and it's freaking them the fuck out. Like, you know what they didn't, you know what they'll never talk about on the news is the suicides that happened during all these lockdowns and everything that they did. You know,
You
so
know,
many people, so many dreams were crushed, and just people freaking
and I
out.
think the best of humanity, like Americans, like I wish they were Muslim so bad. I love Americans so much. Like when I look at the Satanic Panic, like I know of the 80s, I know we don't have in the Muslim world, we don't have the cadre of bravery or balls or whatever for that to happen yet. There are a lot of brave people and a lot of good and a lot of naive, like, even, you know what, being woke is overrated sometimes. You know what, like, I regret even talking about this stuff to my mom, because even if she didn't know about Michelle Obama, she's good. Like,
Right.
she's an ignorant but good-hearted person,
Exact.
and
Yeah.
a lot of Americans, they're very good-hearted people.
Dude.
The powers that be, they hate Americans. I'll tell you this: the future, the future they want for Americans, they want basically the collapse of Rome. And what happened when the collapse of Rome? The pinnacle of Roman society were forced to be Varangian guards. You know what Varangian guards were? They were mercenaries. These were people from they call themselves Franks, right? And so on. And they would become bodyguards for the emperor in Byzantium, in Constantinople, right?
Really.
I think that's what they want. They want the future of America. They want to impoverish America, the land itself, so bad that the only prospects young Americans have, I'm talking about Zoomers and so on,
Yeah. Or to
the
join
kids
the is to join the empire.
join the empire, be mercenaries for the American Wagner group, whatever American
Wow.
version of the Wagner group. It's not even going to be the army, man. It's
Yeah. Wow.
they're,
Dude, it's
they're
gonna be like the French
dismantling.
Foreign Legion or whatever. It's just gonna be like something where you can just
You said it. You said
call
it.
us in and
They're
we'll fuck your shit up and you can pay us out.
you
Yeah.
said it,
Damn, dude.
Alan. They
That's
they they are
fascinating.
dismantling the army so fast and downgrading the U.S. Army so fast. I think one big major war, and it will be the end of the Department of Defense. And this new thing where they have these private security type arrangements and the mercenary type forces is the way of the future. And the Russians were, honestly, you're right. The French Foreign Legion was the first,
Yeah.
but the modern rendition is Wagner Group, and they're gonna have a lot. And ain't it funny? Wagner is a German name, right? It's a Germanic
Wouldn't you
name,
know it?
but it's, wouldn't you know it? And it's supposedly Russian. What Russian do you know is named Wagner? Why isn't it called the
Dude, the Ivan
Ivan
Gorgonov, man,
Group?
like, you know,
Yeah,
the
the
Gorgonov
Ivan
group.
Gorgonov Group, right? The Varangian Guard were Germanic people, right? The fall of Rome was because of Germanic barbarians or whatever. That's the claim they want to
That's
make,
yeah,
right?
yeah, that's what
Odoacer
they
and so on.
say.
That's what they say. I honestly think they really want to turn young Americans into the future mercenary, the future
Well, they're
bodyguards
kind of already
of
doing that
this
with
Eurasian
Antifa.
arm. And we're already kind of doing that. And
Yeah, they've
I'll tell
already
you this,
got yeah.
in the 90s, I'm glad I'm old enough to have witnessed this change of the American foreigner. In the 90s, the standard American in the Middle East was the American businessman,
Mm,
right?
yeah.
If you went to Saudi Arabia, if you went to Dubai, it's still the case in Dubai, but now only in Dubai. If you went to Qatar, Bahrain, Jordan, and you came across an American, literally 99 times out of 100, it's a man there on business, right?
Yeah.
Now, if you go to the Middle East, the this is what you see. The only Americans you see there, right, are private security types, right, working as mercenaries or military, advising Arab armies in an adversarial role, right? You never see a guy in a suit, and instead you see Chinese businessmen. And
Oh
the other
yeah.
thing, you see Chinese motherfuckers in hard hats everywhere. In
Oh
Mosul,
no.
Iraq, you're
Jeez.
seeing Chinese in hard hats, not afraid to work with asbestos, actually trying to make a buck. But the only Americans you see are either there on private security, right?
Hmm.
Or they're missionaries and they're there with an NGO and they're trying to convert some people into evangelical
Yeah, dude, it's so cool that we
Christianity.
do that.
And it's so funny. I was like, where are the where are the business guys?
Yeah.
You know, this is and that was a template that the American made, right?
Yep.
Because you'd see a Swede or an Englishman or a Canadian, but you'd think by default, hey, look at this Americano. But then when you speak to him, oh, he's from Sweden or something. It's because the American businessman trope was a thing in the third world, in the Middle East. But now it's not. It's gone.
Man,
They destroyed that. In my lifetime, it's gone.
it's
And
wild.
when you go on YouTube, you see all these guys talking about traveling to, but they seem like grifters. The guys from America who talk about traveling and setting up shop here or there, they're all grifter types, like Gonzalo Lira, and it's so weird.
Oh yeah, dude, we'll have to get into some of that stuff later.
Yeah.
Hey, we've been going for 2.5 hours. It's
Oh
been
yeah,
awesome.
yeah, yeah. It's midnight now.
It's been awesome, man. Really appreciate you
Hmm.
coming on, and definitely gonna have you
Likewise,
back
brother.
on, man. So we could just put out volumes of this shit. Like you're a wealth of information, and it's awesome to to speak with someone who has their own way of looking at it, who approached it from a different perspective, and just has a different
Thank you.
background into it, and what you can bring to the overall truth movement, whatever this is that we're doing, and the people that we're coming across. Like hopefully we can bring more people together, and more especially in these compartmentalized places, man. I think that like you were saying, how they're rolling these things out, uh and the prestige of like it coming from American science, and like it's this big trustworthy thing. Guys, it's not like we as if I was involved in it, but like the Europeans that backed Einstein, and all the fake
The
experiments that they
West,
did to
yeah,
lie to get into all this, and everything. There's no science behind it. It's all illusory. And definitely as they start doing more space stuff, link me in it or whatever, and I'll start making reviews to it, and you can distribute it to whoever networks of people that you have access to do that with. Because yeah, this stuff, if we could get it early and body bag it and wrap it up, like that would be
mhm.
awesome, because they're just going to do it to everywhere they can for as long as they can, while going nowhere and extracting all the wealth from every future generation of the countries that they're operating in. They're sick vampires.
Absolutely, they are, man. Like this will go on, like when we're hopefully we live that long. If we're in our 80s and 90s, right? And the Zoomers are 65 and 70 years old or whatever, and
Yep.
whatever new generation is coming down the path, we're gonna be laughing because we're gonna see some out of this world psyop on them that we couldn't even fathom, but at least we were strengthened with this
Yeah.
embedded knowledge that these guys are just bullshitters, right? So
Yep. Exactly.
like it just gives me a peace.
Yep. All right, and with that, we're gonna roll the show out. There's no intro or outro, so we'll just hit the stop recording. But links to everything will be in the description. I'll get links to folks' vid on Elon Musk and everything up. We'll get all that
Thank you.
rolling. And
Yeah, if I can't find it, if since you have it downloaded, by all means you can upload it, re-upload it, and
oh, cool,
on your
dude,
channel even.
awesome, Awesome, bro.
Yes,
Yes,
please.
most
Yeah.
definitely. Dude, it's a banger, bro. It's a great video.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank
I will be my honor to upload that, man. So I will get that up and I'll send you a copy of this when it's done. I'm going to edit out the thing we talked about briefly about the
you. Oh
testing,
yeah,
uh,
yeah,
just for
yeah.
security measures. But yeah. So all right.